So, hello, and welcome to Double Feature Movie Club. This is our 35th episode, and we have a really good show for you here today. We're talking two Jason Reitman-directed movies. That is 2011's Young Adult and 2018's The Frontrunner. We are joined with two people that you know and love. My co-host, as always, Diane, and I think our biggest fan, Ava. That's right. And
yay!
I think you like to say what, Diane's lady in waiting or whatever.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you're here. I love it every time you're here on this side of things, Ava. And I also appreciate the quickness that you came and joined us here today.
Glad to do it. Just you got to tell me if my hair's okay. That's all.
Okay.
What hair?
Well, first off, we're celebrating something here today here in Tulsa, which is where I'm at and everything. We have an exciting thing that's happened. We've talked about it quite a bit here on the show. Even before it was supposed to come here, I just was telling people about how great that is, and then when it came here, it was a big deal. And that is Summer Moon Coffee is officially here in Tulsa, so
Yay!
Excited about that. That's their mug, and then I got one here. I had one yesterday, was their grand opening, and then this I got one today, obviously, because this is that. So yes, Summer Moon's here. I love Summer Moon. I think that it's great coffee. I always just get the half moon latte. I've tried other things, but they're most popular for a good reason. So very excited that it's here.
So, Cade first told me about Summer Moon Coffee after a trip he made to Fayetteville, and he fell in love with this coffee. So he came back, researched where was the closest cup of this coffee could he get from Summer Moon, and it was Oklahoma City, right?
Yes.
So you drove to Oklahoma City to check it out. He even came back and talked to our trivia team about potentially getting a franchise. It was that good.
Is that good? I think,
Okay.
yeah. And there's 3 in the area, and I've been to 2 of those over there. And then when I went to Texas, I don't know, a few months ago, I don't know if it was probably more than that, 6 months ago or something.
Yeah.
But I went all through. I tried a few of them down there because that's where they're from. They're from Austin. So exciting.
This is a guy who has been to every coffee shop, chain and non-chain, I think in the northeastern Oklahoma area. So he knows what he speaks of. I think of you as a coffee pro, and that's it. So where in Tulsa is Cherry Moon located?
Summer Moon is on Cherry Street, which I think that's what.
Oh, did I say Cherry Moon?
Yeah, you said Cherry Moon, so I think you knew. But thanks for the setup, though.
I remember you saying it was on Cherry Street, so yeah, I kind of gave that one away.
But no, I appreciate the setup. Yes,
on Cherry Street.
On Cherry Street. Yes,
But we're at. I hate to say this, but Cherry Street's kind of a long street.
Well, True Cherry Street's kind of short, right? I mean, it's
Right.
So it's on True, or what you would call True Cherry Street, which is what, between Peoria and Lewis or whatever. I think that's where it's at. Yeah. So yeah, it's there.
So is it closer to the Panera Bread or is it the Palace Cafe? That's all I need to know.
I guess it's closer. It's closer to the Panera. It's closer to Lewis. But I think, or I don't know. I guess it actually is kind of further. I don't know exactly where it's at. They're all kind of run together at that point. It's on Cherry Street.
What's next door?
What's next door? I don't know, Diane. It's over there. It's across from the new Foxy's Tacos. I know that.
See, I've heard Foxy's Tacos was really good too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's over there.
Is there a drive-through at Summer Moon?
There is. It's the first drive-through I've seen of Summer Moon.
Anybody have an address?
Well, they can find it. You can find
it's
it.
Really not that long of a It's a mile-long stretch. It's going to be.
You guys sound like my cousins. She'll go, do you know where this building used to be? No. Well, it's next to that one.
It's next to that one.
The building that used to be there, but it's not there anymore, and you don't know where it is, it's next to that one.
That's it. This is how we communicate. Can you tell? So it has a drive-through, which is good news.
Sam joined, said, "You guys are making me hungry."
Yeah. Foxy tacos for dinner, and then Summer Moon.
Summer Moon,
coffee,
yes.
Dessert.
Dessert,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. Do they have desserts and
Yes, and thirsty
other
for
things?
coffee. Yes, they got they got things. They got things. Yes, they have like some pastries and stuff too, which I haven't tried. I mean, it's coffee's that great that I but yeah, they got a few different things. It's I'm excited that they're here. I was talking to the owner there. He's the one who franchises out in OKC as well, and they wanted to come here to the Tulsa thing, Tulsa market, and I think that's a great location for it. And real trendy and everything, and the interior design's really cool and everything. So recommend people going to it. We were talking that, I mean, they're all over. I mean, they're throughout Texas, but they're only really in Oklahoma City. And then, of course, now have one in Tulsa. There's Fayetteville. There's one up in Kenosha, Wisconsin. That's the the odd one.
That's why you were asking about Kenosha.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So they're very, I mean, as north as they get. I think there's one in Kansas, but I don't even know where in Kansas, but most of them are down here. But they're also kind of rare. So it's a nice place, and I'm glad they're here in Tulsa now. And they're great. What they're known for, what I get, the Half Moon, is it's espresso and their sweet cream, which they call moon milk, and they sell the moon milk there that you can get. So, which I have bought before, but it's like, I don't know. I liked it and everything, but I just like going there, and I don't drink coffee enough on a daily basis that I do it, but I don't know. I go there and they make it right. So that's part of it.
It's on the corner of St. Louis Avenue and 15th Street.
Okay.
So
that's closer to an address. That's good.
It's closer to where you and I went to eat at that Palace Cafe, Ava, when you were down here last. So, or one of your trips here.
Well, like 15 years ago. Okay, wait a minute. Let me think.
Yeah, it was about 15 years ago, wasn't it? Across from Smoke, and it looks like they're open till 8. So
yes,
Tuesday night when we go to Open Container for trivia, I'll stop by and get some coffee for the road. And,
there you go.
Yeah.
Perk
me up a little bit for trivia, make my brain function, get those synapses firing. Yes. I love coffee.
Well, good. Sam was in the chat, and I did want to mention that I was just we recorded a new episode of his on his show, the Film Fan Club, where we talked Scream and the new Scream movie, Scream 6, and had a great conversation there. And that will be going up tomorrow, I believe, is when he drops his episode. So you can check that out on his YouTube channel or podcasting on Film Fan Club. So
I can't wait to hear this. I just can't.
It was a really good conversation. Yeah.
I'm not a fan of Scream at all.
Well, you haven't watched it. Yeah.
At all, because I'm not into horror movies. But just listening to you and Sam talk about it for the 5 or 10 minutes last week, I was like, I have to hear these two talk about this franchise, even though I'm not a fan of it.
And there was another guest, I think his name was Lucas, and he was from London, and he was a very fascinating guy too, and he was a big Scream fan. We were all Scream fans and everything, so but just had different opinions on it. Me and Lucas were on we agreed a lot through it, so that was fun. But yeah, so I enjoyed it. There was a lot of really fun conversation about it and everything, and not to spoil anything, but yeah, you can go and watch it there, and it was a really fun conversation. So I of course jumped at the chance when Sam asked if I could if I wanted to talk Scream. I was like, I've been waiting my entire life for that question. Absolutely.
Yeah, because no one wants to talk about it. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, let's talk with Alex, and Alex is like, I know nothing. I mean, I haven't seen any of them, but I guess
he said he saw the first 3. Yeah.
No, I don't think he saw any of them because he was going to watch it. His girlfriend's a huge Scream fan. Yeah. So Lexi's a huge fan. So, which that was nice. Anyways, so I just wanted to mention that up top. So check that out when it is. Last of Us ended. Which we talk sometimes. That's sad. Nothing on HBO tonight because next week is the start of Succession, which I know. Don't you watch Succession, Ava?
Oh, I don't.
Oh, you don't? Oh, okay.
Haven't.
For some reason, I thought you did. Yeah. Love Succession. So that's if you haven't started watching that starts next week.
Do either of you watch Shrinking on Apple TV?
No, is it good?
No.
Yes, very good.
Good. I want to check that out because I mean I'm a huge Harrison Ford fan. So
yeah, then you will. I think you will really like it.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely you need to check it out if you're a Harrison Ford fan.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a different role, and it's kind of feels like more in line with how he maybe actually is, and I don't know that's I mean a little bit more. He's a little bit more
very natural in the part. Since I don't know him personally, I can't tell you.
I would say he's not like
he might be more sarcastic in real life. When I've seen him in interviews and so on and so forth. Here he plays an aging psychiatrist or psychologist. I'm not sure which, but the three main characters are all shrinks. Pardon, Diane? Sorry.
The aging part is got down.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, definitely. So that's definitely in the character, and he definitely plays it very well. But there is a sarcastic side to his, or an edge, I should say, to his character. But it's funny. It's very well acted. I think, my opinion, very well written. So definitely, Cade, you should check it out if you're a Harrison Ford fan.
And that brings up a good sort of because his public persona is people. I don't understand where the sort of shift came from. Where like he's not like it's not. I find it charming, his sort of sarcastic game, but people find it off-putting and like say that why is he so curmudgeon-y, like it's a negative thing. And then same thing just happened with Hugh Grant when he did that thing, and people sort of bring up he's just awful.
Wait, I got to disagree with you there because I love Hugh Grant. I think he's one of the funniest interviews out there, but that was bad. Have you seen it?
Yeah,
yes. I thought, man, did he not like that interviewer? There was something wrong. There was something wrong there. I didn't find it funny, anything. It was just like, I really hate that I'm right here right now, and I hate you, and I'm not going to give you anything.
But she was asking very shallow questions.
Well, but that's her job.
I don't think
all ask shallow
questions.
I'm someone like I agree. He's openly said that he's been awful, and there has been people said he is sometimes awful, and that is well documented. And he's even sort of said, yes, I have been incredibly awful in a lot of situations. So I'm not discounting that of how awful he is. But
Did he say he was trying to be funny?
In that situation, I don't think he was trying to be funny. No, but I also don't.
I mean, what has he said about it since? Has he said?
I don't know. I don't know what he's. I don't know what he said. I don't know if he has said
anything.
But
Jimmy Kimmel ran it on his show. It was bad. I mean, like Harrison Ford. Sorry, not to get off track. Harrison Ford. I agree with you. I like his interviews, even with the edge, or even with. I don't think he's trying to be funny necessarily. I think he's trying to be honest, and I really enjoy him. This, and like I said, Hugh Grant, I normally love his interviews. That was in another category, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, they're different. I mean, I'm not going to say I do think that Harrison Ford doesn't try to be rude and doesn't try. I think he's kind of over it. And I do think that there's something to the same thing of Hugh Grant of just like, okay, you're bringing. I'm here, and I'm not, and I'm just wearing what I would wear, like because she was asking like who this is, and like he's like it's just a suit. I just wore a suit.
I know, but that's what they always ask on the red carpet. He has to know that.
Well, surely
it wasn't funny.
Every red carpet show that's ever been created.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure
I've been on the red carpet. How many times?
The red carpet because he's such a celebrity guy.
I get that.
It was the shortness of his answers. It's like if he was trying to be funny, he would have gone on. She was like,
I think he was annoyed. No. I do think he was. He was annoyed.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah, but at beyond annoyed. I would say.
But like
not necessarily in her.
At the situation,
that same interview at least 20 times on the red carpet.
Yes.
So it's not like he didn't know. Because he's probably already had that interview 15 times. So what was it about that interaction.
Yeah, it's something that had to have happened off camera, or he was on something, or I don't know. But it was like completely out of character, I thought. It was nothing like his normal interviews, nothing. It was just like, somebody pushed me up here. I don't want to be here. You
have to understand
I don't know why I'm here.
His perspective in the situation of like, it's got to be tough for these people who are these type of actors who don't get awards, but they're there to lend their cachet to this. So, but all these other people who are being nominated and being lauded for their great acting ability, and here's all, and handed these awards and applauded and say, "Oh, you're so great," and they come here and they're like, "Okay, so how did you love being in Glass Onion in this thing?" And he's like, "I was barely in that.
I was hardly in it." Yeah, but he didn't go on. He didn't riff on it. And that's what he would normally do. He'd riff a little,
But on a night in which you're being brought in there to be like, here's a guy who's never been nominated and isn't like of the caliber of actors that are here, but we want your face there, I like Hugh Grant, I really do, but I think that it's a tough situation to put and it is so. I try to think of like that type of interview that's so vapid and so of not like is not why you get into the work. It's just here's the show and the pageantry.
Well then, so that's a good question though. Then do they pay them to present, or is it just like, oh, my face gets broadcast all over the world, right? I mean, there has to be something in it for him to show up and present. So if that's part of his job, then to go on the red carpet as a presenter and then present, I wouldn't pay him. I wouldn't for that night. Yeah. I get your point, Cade. But it's a business, right? It's promotion. I don't know. It was bizarre.
He was on The View, I guess, the next day or the day after.
Okay.
And he was just as sweet as he could be to the ladies, all that stuff.
Yeah, there was something going on.
And sometimes you don't know what they're going on. Like, I mean, it could be something, you don't know.
He talked about getting to play the bad guy for Dungeons and Dragons.
Which I'm excited for.
So which is probably why he was on the red carpet. Because it's usually the people who are asked to present something else going on. And that's why they're there to get their face in front of people. What he did say about Dungeons and Dragons, though, he said it to him when he read the script, it was like a cross between Monty Python and Princess Bride. So he had to do it. And the clip they showed with him in it, it's very Princess Bride-like. And I'm kind of excited for this one.
Absolutely. And I've been watching a lot of the promotional campaign for, like, I'm 100% involved because I love, they did a Wired autocomplete interview, which I love those, by the way. I don't know if you ever watch any of those with all those people. It's one of my favorite online things that they do. And it was him, and it's Hugh Grant, Chris Pine, and Michelle Rodriguez. And it is by far the best one. And these are things I absolutely love and eat up like candy. It just, their dynamic is so crazy. It's so chaotic. It's chaotic. It's funny. It is. And I think that to me is one of those things that like I think there are things that fit him and do that whole thing, and then there's things that don't. And like, and when he's in his groove, it does that. And I do think he was out of his groove. I don't think it was. And I don't know, but I
want to be clear. I think he's one of the greatest comedic actors of all time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how much I like Hugh Grant. Mm-hmm. I think he's one of the greatest comedic actors of all time. It's just that's why there had to be something else going on with that interview. I don't know what it is, and if he never says, we'll never know. But
he certainly got everybody talking about him.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like one of those things. I don't know.
The goal.
Yeah, I think that it was something that was blown out of a little bit out of proportion, and like it was.
Did you see it, Paige? Did you see the interview?
Yeah, I watched it, and I think it was just it was nothing. Yes, he was a little rude to her, but I think that she was also a little rude to him. Like, read the room, lady. Like, he's not, that's not what he's wanting to do. And she just keeps prodding him with these stupid, like, just vapid questions.
Her job. Come on, Cade. That was her job. She asked the same question she asked. I saw the whole show.
Yeah.
And she asked him the same question she asked everybody else.
Yeah, but you don't.
Because she could not figure out how to pivot.
Well, ask him about Dungeons and Dragons if that's what he's there to talk about.
That he blew her off on, she just couldn't pivot to what he, she just couldn't. But bless her heart.
Yeah, but he wasn't giving her anything to.
She doesn't have to ever worry about, doing long interviews with celebrities. I mean, she'll do red carpets. But,
yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Anyway,
we'll move on.
I can't wait for Dungeons and Dragons.
I think we all say we like Hugh Grant. Yeah.
And you know why I can't wait for Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, Chris Pine.
Oh, Chris Pine.
Yes.
Oh, he's great.
I was surprised whenever I saw Hugh Grant and Chris Pine standing next to each other that Hugh Grant is wider, and Hugh Grant's not a big guy. So, yeah. Oh, in fact, I was going to mention this to you, Cade, and I forgot. When he was on The View and he was talking, they asked him which was his favorite, romantic comedies that he ever played, and you know which one it was?
Which one?
The same one you have.
That's Music and Lyrics?
Yeah.
Oh,
he said it was his favorite.
He's playing a character.
Yeah, he's playing this old, washed up rocker. He said he just felt so comfortable in that skin.
I liked it. I mean, it was him, he gets to sort of play something where, I mean, at times he's playing the Hugh Grant type. And this one is a little bit of a stretch for him. It's a little bit, it's still within his will, but it's I think a lot of British actors and English actors say that they want to be the joke. That's a big difference between American comedy and British comedy. And I think even he was talking about that in this Dungeon, because I've seen a lot of Hugh Grant in this recently, watching all this Dungeons and Dragons press. And he was saying, I love being, and I think that's an example of him where the joke's on him a little bit. Where he's this aging rocker and everything. And I think that a lot of English actors and British actors feel more comfortable in that role.
Yeah. Yeah, and they told him how he talked about how he was supposed to dance, and so he stood there for 15 minutes, or they finally brought in somebody to help him.
It's funny dance. The dance moves are hilarious.
Yeah, they really are.
Well, I guess we'll need to start our show, actually.
Yeah, probably should, since we're so far behind.
Yeah, I got a feeling I'm going to be blamed for one of the longest shows again if we don't.
Ava, you have the record.
Responsible for that.
You have the record, Ava.
No.
Yeah, so who knows? Okay, so we're talking our two movies, once again, our Jason Reitman-directed films, Young Adult and The Front Runner. We'll start with our movie, Young Adult. We'll play our little interlude, and then I will start off this time giving the plot of Young Adult. Okay, here is the plot for Young Adult. Charlize Theron plays a 37-year-old divorced alcoholic ghostwriter of a series of young adult novels, of which she is writing the final chapter because it's soon to be canceled. She receives a picture of their newborn daughter, of her former high school boyfriend. His name's Buddy Slade. They referred to him as his full name, and that's played by Patrick Wilson. And then his wife, his new wife. She's referring. So then at that point, she kind of decides she's going to head back to her hometown, which is of Mercury, Minnesota. She lives in Minneapolis. She goes back to her hometown of Mercury to essentially reclaim her life with her former high school boyfriend, try to win him over and away from his new wife and child. There she meets Patton Oswalt, who plays who she also went to high school with, and he is still suffering from a high school injury attack that he had from a lot of the kids there, and leaves him with where his legs are hurt. It's an awful situation, and she forms a connection with him. And he's a nerd, and he puts together, I action figures and different things, and he has a distillery and everything. And it's her running into her parents and all these things, and under the guise that she's there for a real estate deal. But really she's there to reclaim her life with Betty. That is essentially the plot of Young Adult. Is that good or overlong? There you go. That's the plot. What did you guys think of Young Adult? We'll start Diane. Diane, what did you think?
Oh, man. I have so much respect for this director. Mm-hmm. And now that I know that, what is it? Cody is the lady that wrote it.
Yeah. Diablo Cody. Yeah.
Diablo Cody, which she wrote Juno.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And, yes. I'm surprised that those two who came up that created Juno, mm-hmm. created this. Oh. I mean, I want to rescue the dog. Number one.
Yeah. Forgot to say she has a dog. Yeah.
And it's a good thing in the closing credits that it said that no animals were hurt in this, mm-hmm. because that to me was the worst part of the whole movie, was the way she treated the dog. And
well, she just left it behind a few times, right?
Cade, you wouldn't understand. It's okay. We know how you feel about dogs.
Threw it out on the balcony.
No, it's funny. The thing about Jason's movies that is almost always consistent is he has these biting kind of characters that are not very likable, but mm-hmm. he tries to put them in heartwarming situations so that they thaw you a little bit so that you'll care about them. I did not give a shit about this woman after this was at the end of this movie. Did not care what happened to her.
At the end of the movie, or throughout the movie, or just by the end of it?
At the end of the movie, yeah. I did not. She didn't redeem herself, in my opinion. I never did care about her.
Okay, that's what I want to know if you never did.
To me, the best character in this movie was Patrick. What character did he play?
Is Patrick Wilson or Patton Oswalt?
Oswald.
Oh, Patton Oswalt. Okay.
Yeah.
Matt
because
Freehoff.
Without him, there is no heart in this movie at all. Without him. There's no one you can relate to. I mean, the boyfriend, Patrick, mm-hmm. the other Patrick Wilson.
Patrick Wilson, yeah.
He's kind of one-dimensional. He's got the hardest part to play.
Yes.
Because he's got to play somebody who cares about his wife, and he doesn't want this to happen, but he's got to be a nice guy. So he's got the hardest part to play in all of this. Charisse has the most fun part to play, but it's actually Oswald that you can relate to. He's like the
that's a tough role to play too. Yeah, I don't know, Patton Oswalt, just the vulnerability.
But it wasn't believable. She would not have ever slept with this guy. I mean,
okay, because we're spoiling the movie.
Well, we always learn.
Yeah. No. Okay. So you didn't like the movie, Diane. Ava, what did you think about the movie?
I just think this pair has done better movies. Let's put it that way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I as usual, I agree a lot with Diane. I think Juno had so much positive spirit mm-hmm. and lightness to it and heart to it. This one, I didn't care about her. Like, I was invested in her at the beginning, I will say. It's because I was waiting for growth, right? She's a really good actress, so I liked her performance. I thought she was giving a very good performance, but I really had to hang in there to see if she was going to have any kind of personal growth or something. Mm-hmm. So I was rooting for a while. Then I don't know, like at the end, they threw in it's a spoiler alert, so I don't know if I want to. So let me say it this way: the last end, her monologue, they threw something in there that might explain her more, and why she was how she was, and why she was sort of frozen in that period of time. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't enough for me. It wasn't done well enough. It wasn't written well enough for me to make me go, oh, okay, now I understand, and poor her, and so yeah, I had a difficult time. I remember being kind of only semi-interested in it the first time, and I saw it, and then the second viewing, I felt the same way. It was difficult to like any of the characters, even the Oswald character, except that he had been, horribly beaten. That, of course, was, and that comes out at the beginning of the movie, so that's not a spoiler alert. But
well, they were both
you
kind of
felt
stuck.
for him. Yeah, you felt for him. You definitely did feel for him, but his character kind of stayed the same, somewhat. He kind of had an overall view of it.
Okay.
And,
yeah.
Well, he was stuck in high school too.
Well, that's the
he
whole
was
point.
Stuck in that mindset too.
That's true.
That's the whole point, is that they're stuck in wanting to relive the high school days when they've moved far beyond 20 years beyond them.
Yes. Well, that's the idea that's grappling with, is that sort of how much have you changed from high school? Can you? I mean, and when you're around these people, does it? What effect does that have? And I like.
But that was all. That was all. I think I liked it a little better than Diane, and certainly not as much as it sounds like you did, Cade. I know you haven't had a chance to talk about it really yet, but that's what I'm sensing. But I'm sorry, there was one other thing. But that all was set up, Cade. Everything you just described you saw in the first 10 minutes, or once she got to town, that was it, and there wasn't enough movement or progression for me, I guess is what I'm saying in the storyline.
There are a lot of movies of going back like this that are better.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think what sort of sets this apart is I think the ending is sort of what makes. I love the journey but I think that the ending kind of colors it in this interesting way of where it has sort of both things. Like, it doesn't go the route of she's like a lot of movies where they've changed forever because in a huge sweeping way. But they do a half measure where it's kind of like she had this moment in what is a very low time in which you think that change is possible, but perhaps people can't change that drastically within a hour and a half long movie. And I do think that is a real thing. I do think that we go back to our old habits and everything, and I think she was waiting for someone to say at the end of the movie what that lady said to her, and perhaps we can't change all that much because old habits die hard or whatever. And I do think that that's fascinating, and I do think I love the dynamics of everybody. I thought it was a really every character had interesting ways to test her and to do everything. And I found it to be a really excellent character study. The comedy at time, or the people are a little mean spirited for my taste. That is the one thing that I see,
and this was a bigger discussion. Sorry to interrupt you, Cade. I would love to have that discussion with you guys someday. The things I see labeled as comedies these days, I just can't get it. Yeah. I just don't get it. Years ago, these movies would never be labeled a comedy ever. And this movie, I did not see any comedy in it.
Oh, there were some funny parts. There were some funny parts that were humorous. But I got where the jokes were.
I'm curious.
But at times, but there were times, and I would say, for the most part, it's on the right side. But there are times where I'm like, that crossed a little bit of a line where I'm like, where they're a little too mean spirited, and that's the part where I'm like, I don't know, because I don't know if you're supposed to laugh at Patton's condition, because that's the part that I'm like, nah. I think that there are some things that are played for jokes that I'm like, that's uncomfortable if that is what the case is. And I'm
not trying to be judgmental. I'm really curious. What was a funny scene? I really am honestly interested that you found.
A funny, let me try to think. Moment. Let me try. I'll have to think about it. I mean, it's not of which parts there were, but that I did find some things.
The only while you think about that, there's only really one thing that comes out of the whole movie, is that she's an alcoholic. She's not going to get better. She's not going to. The whole movie, she acts like an alcoholic. She drinks like one. She treats her dog like an alcoholic treats their animals. She treats other people like alcoholics treat. alcoholics, other people, her car. I mean, everything about her is screaming this person is an alcoholic and probably needs help. The movie, she doesn't get help. She barely admits it. And when she does admit it, she admits it. She tells her parents she's an alcoholic, or she thinks she is, and her parents laugh at her. So it's not. Yeah, it's like she's no self-awareness in that sense, I guess. But at the end of the movie, you don't see her driving off going, you know what? I realize I have an issue and I have to deal with it.
There was some humor as I'm looking through my notes and everything. I appreciate that. Yeah, it took me to, yeah. So
how do you like me giving you that?
I appreciate that. That time. So what happened?
I am a co-host.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate that. So her and Patton, there are some really humorous things between them of where like he knows why she's there. And he told him. Yes, because she said this to him, and his reaction to that was great. And then whenever he's there at the bar, whenever they're, so that's one of the funniest things where it's great. Dramatic table set of all that, where you know why she's there, and Patton knows why she's there, but of course Patrick Wilson doesn't, and that there's a lot of comedy that comes from, of course, the audience knows, but one character doesn't, and what's the unsaid, and I do think that was a very funny interaction, and then just the anxiety.
I just found it sad.
But it's anxious. It's that sort of cringe comedy that I think that is a rise.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's some of the things that and this is great. I mean, people perceive things differently. Yeah. What you perceive as funny, I just perceive as kind of absurd, but not absurd funny. There's absurd funny, but then there's, she's delusional,
yes.
which to me is not funny. It's sad, right? So
there's a sad quality to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's an alcoholic.
Yeah, but like it's also it's cringy. Like you're in the situation where you're like, oh no, please stop. And I find that to be funny to see someone making these poor decisions.
On screen with Patrick Wilson.
Oh God, it's so
cringy.
It's just sad.
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
And that.
But I like that.
I hope I have never done that when I'm drunk. Please, Lord.
Yeah.
I'll give you one thing that I thought was maybe borderline funny, but it was still so cruel, is when she kept calling the baby it.
Yeah.
Every time she referred to the baby, she said it.
Mm-hmm.
And like the absurdity of her calling someone's baby in front of them an it.
Yes,
struck me funny every now and then. Every now and then it was like, that's too far. You've done it now, because she must have called it like maybe 10 times during the movie, at least. And the first few were funny. The rest were just like, oh my God, that's just,
But I liked how apparent her decisions were. Like that was very fascinating to me. That and fun.
She was committed to her delusion.
Yes, and that fact that like everyone's there, and I like whenever you sort of know where these characters are coming from, and it's like it's watching this sort of train wreck happening in front of you. Like everyone's you're aware, but like how much these other characters are aware is fun to play with, and like, but the fact that you already know what she's going for, and she's so apparent with it at times or throughout it, pretty much every time, and every decision that she makes is so sort of apparent that it makes it very cringy and very I don't know. I had fun with the movie. I thought it was fun, and
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I can't go there with you there on the fun train, but
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
The one thing though, and I would have to say that the ending, I like that there's right. It was an ending, right? Her. I'm trying not to spoil it, or are we spoiling it?
We can spoil it.
Did Diane spoil it enough?
I mean, but I feel like there's a lot before the ending, but we want to jump to the ending, but yeah.
Well,
I don't know how much. I mean, we've pretty much covered the premise of the movie.
Well, I
Woman's
don't know. We
alcoholic,
didn't.
She
We
keeps saying this. She says, "Oh, I want to
It
go
was the
relive my high
same
school
all the way
days."
through.
But there's one
wasn't-
part
yeah.
that I would think that we haven't talked about, and it's the fact that she's the author of a young adult series. Like, and I found that to be very fascinating. And of course, behind the scenes, like learning, of course, that the writer, you know, we talked about this beforehand, but that she where this came from is she was at Juno or talking about Juno and everything at some sort of press conference or something, and someone asked her, "Why are you so obsessed with like adolescent, you know, stories and all that?" And she's like, you know, she then turns introspective. Well, why am I? And I do think I'm stuck there, and I think that that's a fascinating sort of thing. You know, I think that her sort of digging into that and it's a really interesting thing because I think, of course, a lot of people do relive some of that stuff and everything. Not, of course, to the crazy extent that this goes to. But I did find it a fascinating setting. I did.
Yeah, I would agree that was interesting, especially if you really listen to what she was writing. Like, for example, in her book, the it wasn't a wife, it was his girlfriend.
Yes.
You know, and the things that she changed to kind of showed that I would agree with you, Cade. That's kind of fascinating. The things that she changed indicated that she really did know what she was doing. Right? It's like she noticed that, that she was doing wrong stuff. There was just that disconnect, right? She couldn't, you know, enough to stop her from her behavior. But that there was some awareness in there that what she was doing was wrong.
To me, the funniest parts of this movie was when she was at like KFC or McDonald's or wherever. I was about to say fast food and picking up all these lines from these teenage girls that were having conversations around her. And that's where she's getting the words she's putting into these novels.
Inspiration.
That was, to me, that was the funny part. Yes. She was copying him down verbatim.
No, not verbatim, because they said
she actually used those words.
No. That she improved.
You are my moon. You're my stars. Yeah.
But like the whole textual chemistry that she said, like that's not what they said. They said we have like text chemistry or whatever. She's listening to that and making it even more clever and everything, but still keeping the essence of what they're saying and everything. And so to me, that's. I really related to this as a writer, as someone who writes, stories and human story, and like that was.
If you're gonna write YA, that's where you need to go is to the fast food places. Okay,
that's what I'm saying is that you are a collector of what's around you, and even in your personal trauma or whatever. I mean, trauma's a little too heavy for even this, but your personal story and in the people around you, you listen to conversations, you pull from your own life and different things. And I found that to be very truthful and to be very interesting and something that that perspective is what drove the movie for me, and sort of seeing that in your own sort of way, like as a writer, I think that it spoke to sort of what that is and what that does. And in particular with how she doesn't get any credit for it. There's just a lot of things that I found to be very, very fascinating from that level.
I think I would agree. I
thought that was the funniest part.
I would have, and I would have liked the movie better if there was more of that in there. I only remember, 2 or 3 times. Maybe she did it more, but it wasn't memorable to me. But I think if she had done that more with the writing, that contrast of what she was experiencing and seeing and then putting down on paper, if there was more of that, I probably would have liked the movie more.
Well, and the fact that she was an alcoholic was she had a writer's block. Yeah. She just could not finish that book because she had a block because she was an alcoholic. That was everything comes back to her being an alcoholic.
I don't know. I think that's sort of a side. I mean, it's part of it, but it's but the reason that she's not writing is because of she's questioning who she is without this series, and then also is she closing the book on her past and what that young part of herself, because she's still stuck in thinking that she's this young person in that time period and everything, and that all that's sort of standing still. And as she closes the book on this, is she moving on, and what does that mean for her, for like this is all that she is essentially, is this ghostwriter for this YA book. So I think there's a lot of reasons as to why she has this block. It's because she really doesn't want it.
It's making her drink.
Well, yes, that's also. I mean, it is making that. I mean, so whether that's an effect or if that's a cause, it's kind of both. But yeah.
Well, it could be start off as a cause, but it becomes the effect.
I
Or
do
I'd say it's
also
the
like
opposite,
it,
but yeah, yeah.
and I did like a positive for me, and other movies have done it too, but I think this movie did it pretty well. Is like you don't have her without Oswald. You don't, and his sister. You don't have her. You know, it's like the conflicts, the young adults, the popular versus the unpopular. You don't have one without the other. They both play
That's
a part.
right.
It's
Yeah.
not victim. It's not victim and perpetrator. It's all, you know, all interwoven. They play
Right.
off each other. So if you
That's-
don't have
that's
the
why-
idolizers, you don't have the idols. You know, that kind of thing. So
That's
and
why
I
I
thought
thought
that
that,
movie brought that out.
That's why I thought that Patrick Oswalt, I think I said at the beginning, that he had the most pivotal role. Because he's the one
Yeah,
who shows
agree.
that. He gives us that. He's the everyman kind of person.
Well,
Where
what's
she
his
is the
line? It's
Homecoming
It's,
queen.
yeah, guy. What does he say? Is it guys or boys? See, I don't remember. Guys like us are born loving women like you.
Mm-hmm.
You know that you know. I'll just leave that there.
Yeah, because he was the most human of all of the characters in the movie.
Yeah,
Now, all this said,
definitely.
I thought Charlize did a great job
Oh, yeah.
with this character.
She does a great
Because
job
she's
all the time. She's
troubled.
great. Yeah, but she
Yeah.
does good.
Well,
movies.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay.
She's troubled.
Say anymore. Never mind. She did a great job.
Okay.
And I think Patrick Wilson did a great job. He had a tough role to play, you know, so he did a great job with it too. Patrick Oswalt, I thought, was the best of all of them.
Patton Oswalt.
Patton.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
When
Patrick
you said
Wilson.
Patrick, which one? I was
Yeah.
like, there is only. Oh well, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
No, that's no problem. That Patrick Wilson is an interesting character because you have to like. How much do you play into the fact that she is do you play into how she could be correct, like she could change him, or do you play completely like dumb and doesn't understand, and so it's an interesting sort of way of like, do you immediately feel repelled by, but yeah, no, it's a fascinating role.
It's a tough role right there.
Yeah,
and it had to be hard to write too because he can't be a bad guy. But he's in a situation where he's got to be a bad guy to somebody. But you don't want him to be a bad guy. So yeah, he had a tough role, tough part to play.
Yeah, no, I liked all their scenes a lot, and I liked the movie. I wouldn't say I don't know. I'm shocked by how. I mean, what did you guys not care for? Just the end result or the individual scenes?
Yes.
Okay.
I think Diane said it. These weren't likable characters at all. They were, to me, they were sad characters. And despite the humor, which I found less of it than you did, Cade. And there wasn't enough. I always gauge it by that, right? It wasn't enough personal growth. But to your point, Cade, I think you're right. You don't want somebody to like, oh, I'm okay now, big revelation. I wasn't looking for that. I think it was just too mean-spirited. And I think, again, with Juno being so, like, who doesn't like Juno? It's hard-pressed to find people who don't like Juno as a character, right? This, they weren't likable characters. They were sad. They were stuck. That's why I kept waiting for that payoff at the end, which didn't come. So if I could real quick, though, I would like your guys' take on, so spoiler alert. So at the end, when she's obviously losing it and obviously having a breakdown in front of a bunch of people, and they show the mother and father for half a second, and the mother starts to go towards her and the father stops the mother. I thought that was the saddest part of the whole movie. Why wouldn't you let the mother go grab her, take her away, and comfort her or get her some help? Like, I didn't understand that. I didn't understand the purpose of that. That's why I say, like, she was such a mean girl, right? That was the point. And even at the end, she's still mean when she talks back to the sister. She says to the sister, thank you, you've revelation. And the sister says what she says, and she totally discards her and dismisses her. It was just too mean spirited, I guess, for me.
I love that scene, by the way. I think to me that scene is what makes the whole movie.
Yeah, it was an excellent scene.
It was, I mean, of course it's all built on a misunderstanding, which of course that whole thing, but like, I do think, I mean, it's her sort of misreading sort of people's intention. I mean, that's what the baby thing was. I mean, like, I think almost thinks that they're rubbing it in her face or something. Like, I do think that you sort of understand that at that point. It's like
that's part of the delusion, though.
Yes.
To me, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that people think stuff like that all the time. Like, they think that people have bad intentions often, and I do think that, like, they're stuck in their own sort of problems and everything. I think that felt very real in the situation of, like, why would you do this to me and know that, and like, don't you understand my perspective? But most people don't view things outside of their own perspective. And so they don't...
which is sad.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, all this is sad. Like, the people in this are sad. They're a little mean, and they're not likable characters, but I do think that makes them a little real. Like, I mean, I do think that adds a sense of realness to it, of the fact that most people aren't likable people. And most people have, when they're amongst themselves, they say awful things about other people. They say, like, they talk all that, they only see things through their own personal way. We sand those edges a lot of times in movies. We kind of make people a little nicer, and we make things and because also what we put a camera in front of, it shows sort of what, I mean, like, we want... We try to put up the best thing, and you want to show the good side sometimes in humankind, and I do think that when you know someone personally, you look at the good side more than the bad side. This movie's saying we're going to show a lot of the bad side too, and everything, and so I think that is an interesting choice.
I guess we're talking balance. I guess, and I don't know why. Sorry, I'm trying to put words around it. I guess for me, I've seen too many movies that show the sad and the mean and the maybe. So maybe it's just a balance of what you and I have seen. I would probably guess you've seen many more movies than I have, Cade. But I think a lot of movies deal with the sad and the mean and so on and so forth. So I guess we're agreeing and we're disagreeing at the same time. It's just like we're agreeing what the movie
not
is. Not
this type of movie.
It's
not
just,
this type of movie. It's a little rarer. That I would say, which is I don't know, character study, but like, I mean, going back to your hometown, like that, going back to your hometown to reignite with your former high school love is not typically told this way. It's it's hallmarky. It's typically like, and so that to sort of.
Oh yeah. Well, if you throw Hallmark in there, that's a whole other thing.
I mean, it's a premise that's a little. She's a young adult writer who's going back to her hometown to fall in love with her former high school love. Like, that is, and she's well-to-do in the city, and everyone, that is the premise, and where that juxtaposes with what we typically would think that is, and it's like, these aren't likable people, and I don't know. So I find that to be interesting, and but I don't know. I liked it. I had a note about, as a person who loves, of course, and collects vinyl, cassette tapes are stupid. And I don't know, this thing had a love for that. The whole opening intro is a close up of these cassette tapes, and anytime I see them, especially like now, I mean, it makes sense that, of course, that was the cassette tape that she had when she was in high school and all that stuff. It makes sense, but that's just me being a little how I am about things. There shouldn't be no nostalgia for the cassette tape.
I hate to tell you this, Cade, but I can honestly tell you, out of the thousands of people that I have worked with or been around, women especially, I have never known a single one that ever wanted to go back and and try to connect with their high school boyfriend. So this isn't like a real story. I mean, this isn't real life.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't something that actually occurs.
I don't think most people are young adult.
Yeah. That said, oh, let me go try to steal my high school boyfriend back. I mean, most people, by the time they're 40, they can't remember who that guy was. Or if they do remember him, they can't remember his last name. Right? So
You can't remember your high school boyfriend's last name? I mean, by the
time you're 40, you've pretty well forgotten all that. There's been several people between there.
For someone who you had a miscarriage with and we're going to have a whole life with, I feel like that's a pretty... I mean... I don't know.
I have never met anyone who...
Plot point. That's the plot.
I know what you're referencing.
It's so unbelievable, though.
That to me,
I find out in another 15
Yes, Cade, I have to agree with her. Yeah,
but that's the whole.
You don't think you'll forget?
You're not going to know a single person that went back to find their high school. No.
I would agree with that. I mean, that's what the point of the movie is, that she doesn't know 99% of these people. Like, but she remembers him. Like there are people like that. That's the whole point of like this. She goes to the bar and this guy's like, I had a locker next to you. I hope that no one ever tells me that, because of course I would never remember anybody who's ever had a locker next to me.
Cade, people don't do this. This there's nothing real about this. I mean, I think
it's a premise of a film.
It's definitely a premise of it. This is like, what is the one with Jennifer Gardner, where she becomes a 13-year-old again?
Yeah,
it's science fiction.
13 going on 30.
30. I mean, it's a premise of a film.
Level of science fiction.
I'm not saying they dropped a camera in a small town in Minnesota and did a documentary. I mean, obviously, it's a premise of a film.
This is not real in any way, shape, or form.
I mean, you come up with premises and figure out how people would sort of act in these ridiculous premises. That's what film is. I mean.
I get that, but they could have done a little bit better job than this. But,
it's a fun premise.
You touched on the plot point I was talking about earlier. Not a plot point, I guess, but the miscarriage thing. Like,
yes, let's talk about
it. That's the point I was saying wasn't written well enough for me. It's like I didn't understand if like they were trying to explain why she was so delusional and so stuck, and maybe if they had touched on it earlier or something. They kind of like threw it in there. It felt like to me like they had thrown that in there and then kind of threw it away. And so either do something more with that, a little more with that, or don't put it in there at all.
I don't think there's anything that
it felt weird.
Maybe any better than it actually was. We got an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. I would have given it 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm glad I watched it. I mean, I wouldn't say go rent this thing, but I would, if it's on TV, watch it.
Yeah, I mean, that to me was an excellent.
You're not going to learn anything from it.
It's an interesting sort of thing of like, people are, I found it to be fascinating of where she looked down on those people for still living there, and then they turn around and look down at her. Like, and do they look down? Do they look at? It's you sort of look at someone living doing different life decisions from you, and you make yourself feel better because of you think that to get through the day, or essentially. But then she also feels like it's a interesting dynamic of like, and I do think it did a good job of saying like both people wishes that they were the other people, but also are very happy or think very highly of their situation. Look at me with my kid and my family and all that stuff, and you live alone and whatever. But also at the same time, they wish that they had the freedom that she had living in in the success or whatever that they had in comparison to their small town living. And she's this writer and all that. Like, I thought that was interesting. And then she does the same thing from her perspective, but also she's deeply sad. And they're all looking for some sort of fulfillment, and none of them have it. And I find that very, very, very fascinating.
I didn't get that at all. I only saw one character who really and truly wanted to be her when she begged Charlize Theron's character to take her back to Minneapolis with her. That's the only one. I didn't
Right,
get that
and
at
that was
all
totally
from the
based-
boyfriend. And
The boyfriend wanted her to
Right.
sign a book for his daughter. They, you know,
But that doesn't mean he wanted her life.
no, that they looked to that life
they
as
thought
a
of
success.
her they thought of her life as a success.
Yes.
That she had done something that was successful.
Yeah.
And probably proud of her for doing it. But I didn't get that any character in there that wanted to trade places with her, except that one.
I wouldn't say, trade places. I mean, yeah.
Patton's, sister.
Well,
I think-
and the one who did, it was totally based on an unrealistic view of what her life was like. Let's face it,
Yes.
she was in a total depression,
In crisis, in
bordering
reality.
on a psychotic break, so that sister didn't have any clue about what this woman's life was really like. Right?
But that's the whole surface level of how they think everyone looks
Right.
at the surface.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I agree.
And that to me wasn't fascinating.
Is there anything
thing.
else we can say about this movie?
Okay.
Because we've been talking about it for over an hour now. Almost.
Okay. We could just quit the show if we want to.
No. Please feel free. I really like the parts in the fast food places where she was listening to the teenagers talk and writing down their words, because she's writing a young adult novel, right? So she's trying to get into their lingo and how they, the things that they are talking about. I thought that was inspiring, and I bet $1 that the writer Diablo Cody, she has actually done that.
Sure. Yeah.
I think she put it in there because she's done that. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, the clothing. I forgot that this was a style of clothes that people used to dress this way, and like that was way she dressed was very much. I'm like, I forgot that was a thing, and that was I mean, but that was interesting, and it was interesting to see how much technology, of course, has changed in 12 years time. Like, you kind of forget, like, you don't think of it as that long ago, but then it's like, oh well, yeah, it was a long time ago, and TVs aren't 4:3 anymore, and there's just a lot of interesting. I don't know. I found that to be fascinating. I also thought it was interesting
Didn't
because
she have a BlackBerry? Did she have a BlackBerry?
Yeah, someone had a very old iPhone, and there was I don't forget what she had. Yeah, but I think it might have been she driving a Mini Cooper. I mean, there's just little things. She's at KFC, and the cups say KGC because at that point they were doing the Kentucky Grilled Chicken, and they rebranded, and so like the little time capsule like that, you're like, oh yeah, I completely forgot that was a thing, for a bit.
But yeah, they had the KFC, Pizza Hut, and Taco Bell all over the building.
Yes, that was back when Yum Foods owned Pizza Hut as well. I don't know, and that was all interesting of like little tinges of the small town, and the fact that I liked how he invited her to she wanted to go to this trendy bar, and like they used to go to, and he's like, come to this thing, and she dresses all like it's gonna be this trendy bar because she's like, how's 8:30? He says 6, so she shows up dressed the way that she's dressed at this sports bar that's at 6 o'clock. That was a funny little bit, I thought. Other note I had, this is early digital cameras, and so they haven't, and it's early kind of. And then some film, they don't exactly know how to film grade digital cameras by that point. Or maybe it was intentional. I don't know. But there was some weird it was a little grayer than what they would typically do now. I had a note about that. I always have to do.
So they were filmed this digitally, not on film.
Yes. So this is of course one of the early digital. I mean, not early. I mean, it's of course been around by that point, but it was early in now everything's digital. But yes.
What do you think about her spitting on the ink cartridge? I've never tried that. But
I never knew that was a thing. Yeah.
I didn't either. I thought I've learned something from this movie. I learned I could spit on my ink cartridge and get just one more really poorly done inkjet print.
I must say I am thoroughly shocked. I thought that you guys would, I don't know, at least be somewhat like it's okay. I'm surprised that it was.
Well, no, like I said, it was okay.
Okay, I mean,
I think we would both say it's okay. I'll sum up my thing about it. She was just too sad a character for me.
Yeah,
they're sad characters.
Pardon?
There are sad characters.
Of course, there's sad characters. That's why I will watch movies to be more entertained than to find more sad characters. I know too many sad characters in real life.
I have too many
again,
real life alcoholics in my life.
Yeah, exactly. And seeing too many on TV, I mean, oh my God, I'm at the point now where it's like, I'm sorry, it's boring. If you want to see something really positive about alcoholism, and that journey, Mom is an excellent TV series with Allison Janney. That was a superb series on that, and it touched on the highs and the lows and the slow growth and the all that kind of stuff. When I see it in movies, go ahead.
You could say that this movie is a prequel to Mom's. She's Allison Janney's character. Yeah, years later.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess, and maybe it's age, maybe it's generational. Cade, it's just I've just seen it portrayed so many times. It's like there's just not another time I'm going to find interesting somebody downing a shot. It's just
and I must say I'm shocked by how big you guys thought that was part of the film. It was. I mean, it was. To me, that was not a huge
for me, it was
part of
the sadness.
Uh-huh.
For me, it was part of the sadness, and she was just. And I know there, I won't rehash it, but yeah, she was just too sad a character. There was not enough comedy, and I like dark comedies. I just watched Triangle of Sadness.
Oh.
I don't know if you saw that movie.
I haven't seen that, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
it was Oscar, but it's a very dark comedy, and so I can like a dark comedy, so it's not about that. And I've also seen Charlize Theron now in a lot of movies like this, where she plays somebody who's psychologically, Tully, for example, was a much better movie than this, and
also by Jason Reitman.
Sad, yeah.
Also, same screenwriter. I think it's the same screenwriter.
There you go. They did Tully together, and then they did this one. And this
much
Tully's later.
And maybe it's the comparison. You know what I mean?
Tully was much better and explored a sad character. So I'm not against sad characters; they're real. And if you can shed light on why somebody is so sad, rather than just dwell on them being sad, or there just wasn't enough balance for me. It was just she was just a sad character. Oswald's character was sad. It's like it was. And some people like that, and it's that's fine. I'm not being judgmental about it, but for me, that's why I didn't like it better. I think if it had more humor in it, or at least my perception of humor in it, I probably would have liked it better. And if they had a moment of connection between the sister and her, not like, oh my gosh, now I'm cured, like I said before. But if there was a human moment and more of a human connection between that at the end, I think I would have liked it on her part. On I forgot her character's name. Sorry, Charlize's character. If there was more of a recognition of the humanity in the sister, even if it was brief. But I didn't see it. I needed a little longer of a connection there. And I think I would have liked it better, but I didn't hate it. I mean, I'm like Diane, it was like, okay, but that's where I am. I won't go on and on.
Okay. Diane, would you recommend this movie, and what would you rate it?
I'm 50-50 on this one. I don't know that I would recommend. I think if your flipping channels have nothing to watch, maybe, or if you're a huge Charlize Theron fan, because I think she does an excellent job. She always does. But if there's a movie you haven't seen of hers and it's this one, then watch it if you're a fan of hers. Like I said, I'm kind of 50-50 on it. And give me, 4-finger bourbon, bub. 4 fingers of bourbon.
There you go.
Okay,
at least the alcoholism paid off in there.
This was I think that's what redeemed her. Because she's such a despicable character anyway for what she's doing, that you have to have something to kind of forgive her a little bit for what she's doing. And it's the fact that she's not engaged in real life. She's seen life through this haze of alcoholism. And I think that's the point.
Yeah. Okay. You want just a Tumblr? A Tumblr? Is that what you want with that?
Yeah, that one right there is fine.
Perfect. Okay, Ava, would you recommend this movie, and what would you rate it?
Again, I'm the same as Diane. I would not recommend it, but I would recommend it. It's just a different way of saying, I think, what Diane's saying. I wouldn't stay away from it. I wouldn't tell someone, don't bother, not watch it. But then again, I wouldn't say, oh, you got to see this, go see this movie, So I'm at that borderline. So I would give it, I would not recommend it. But I wouldn't recommend it. If that makes sense. So I would give it, I don't know if there's like a little Pomeranian dog. I think I've seen one in the emojis. I would give it 2 little Pomeranian dogs.
I don't think there's a Pomeranian dog emoji.
A little fuzzy dog.
There's just a normal one.
Let me think.
Don't have a little
let's see.
Here, I'll just give you this little Pomeranian guy. Here, it's from the internet.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. Thank you.
It's cute.
We'll be done. Yes.
Yeah, that was the thing about this movie. It'll make you want to go rescue a dog.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe not Cade.
No. Seems
Pomeranians are so joyful too. It's like
I like that it didn't yap and it didn't do. I mean, it was silent. It was kind of silent for a little dog.
It was just it loved her unconditionally.
Yes,
just wanted to love.
Yeah, she didn't deserve. Man, when she opened that container and just threw it out on the patio, that was it for me. I was like, okay, this is going to shade how I feel about this movie. I can tell.
And she wasn't even like. I mean, that wasn't even. It didn't pay off in any way. Like it was just a thing.
She was just mean. I mean, she didn't. At least she didn't kick it.
But you know what? She did redeem herself. She went back and hugged the dog and showed it love
at the very end. Yeah,
at the very end. Yeah,
yeah. She gave it a little love pat right before she threw it into her purse.
Yes. Well, I would recommend this movie. I really, really liked the movie a lot. I thought it was a really great exploration of of the characters in general. I thought, yes, you did feel sorry for her, and I mean, you did, but I mean, you didn't like her either. It was a great balance of all of these things. She wasn't a likable character, but you did somewhat like her, but didn't like her, and she did change, but didn't change. But it was, and then like people, it was a great gray area. This movie really explored these gray areas and opposite ideas. And so I did find it really interesting. I do think that it's worth exploring too. I think what it's saying is worth exploring. I think it's for such a small film about these characters. I think there's a lot that can be written and explored about what it is trying to say thematically and character-wise, which is something that is interesting for this type of film to do. So I would recommend this movie a lot. I gave this movie chicken leg, because she ate a lot of KFC.
Okay. I was kind of thinking you might do the car. But I wasn't sure.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
That to me, that was the saddest part of the whole movie, when she smashed the front of her car. Because it was a cute little car. There's one down the street from me.
Yes, the little Mini Coopers. It's so cute. And I like that. Then then runs into her mom, and then she's forced to like go back to her high school car. I mean, like there's a lot of little things like that. That's like, and then and she becomes even more delusional about the whole.
It's not real. At 40 years old, her high school car, her parents don't still own it. Trust me. They got rid of that thing by then.
I mean, to me, it almost gives me hope of the sense of like these are 37-year-olds that still don't have their life together and still can't get past some of that stuff. Like I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I think it made me hopeful.
Trust me, you're gonna get past it. Because that's not real.
Well, no, I mean, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the fact that like seeing people who are older than me, that's not like that to me, and then like and still haven't like she hasn't gotten married and had get the kid and all that, like, and there's some like Patton Oswalt still having these like all of them, and the fact that they're 37 and just now married and just now have a child, like that's and whatever, all that, just and that they're still dwelling on some of that stuff and everything.
It's pretty amazing he knows the two of us, isn't it, Ava?
I know. I was just gonna say, Cade, you don't need a sad representation of that. You've got very happy representations of that.
No, it's no. I understand.
Everybody has their path.
Exactly. And it's not any sort of I don't know. And her coming to terms with the fact that that's fine. Like, I think that's also a part of the movie, is that like what her life decisions, she comes to terms with that. I do think in the movie, and that is
okay. I think that's where we disagree, and probably at least for me, and that's fine. You know, I did not feel she came to terms with it at all. I think she was sick and she needed help, and you know that's why it's a sad ending to me. I think if I had felt that way, that she had come to terms with it, I would have liked the movie better.
She's going to move on to something else. She's going to move on to something else.
Okay.
I think she had let go a little bit. She had let go of her past, but she was nowhere near being healthy, you know, mentally healthy.
No.
And yeah, so
she had let go of that idea. There'll be another one.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's Young Adult. Continuing the streak of us disagreeing strongly on things. We'll see if it continues on to on the next one on Front Runner. Diane, gets to talk politics. So here we go.
Wait! I gotta strap in. Hold on.
Yeah, here we go.
There we go.
We're gonna go to our intermission, and then Diane will explain the plot of 2018's The Front Runner, also directed by Jason Reitman.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's intermission time. All these delicious treats are waiting for you at the refreshment stand. Delicious fresh popcorn, ice-cold cola, and candy you know and love. They're all ready for you now, so you won't have to miss any of the feature. Come and get them.
And now, on with the show.
Hi, Ava. So
it's not me.
Let's talk about Front Runner. There we go.
There we go.
Hi. Here I am, right here. Okay, so Front Runner. This is a 2018 movie, and as Cade said, it was directed by Jason Reitman, and he was also credited with part of the screenplay, I see. Anyway, the movie is about Gary Hart, the former senator of Colorado, who becomes the front runner for the Democratic presidential nomination in 1987. Gary Hart's intelligence, charisma, and idealism makes him popular with young voters, and apparently he was going to be a clear path to the White House. This is the guy who was going to run against George H.W. Bush. All of that came crashing down when allegations of an extramarital affair surfaced in the media, forcing the candidate to address a scandal that threatens to derail his campaign and personal life. So, the movie itself was, had a budget of $25 million and made $3.2 million. It's got a 58 Rotten Tomatoes score on it. So, anyway, I was here for this. I mean, Ava, you should remember it too, right? It was Dukakis who actually got the nomination that year to run against Bush. And then he met up with Lee Atwater too. So, anyone else out there? That's the synopsis of this particular movie. What did you think of it, Cade? You like these political movies, don't you?
I do like political movies. Sorry, I was I was taken by something while you were talking.
I'm sorry, I didn't. I should have looked up.
Yeah, I like political movies a lot, even bad ones. So those are ones. I mean, I just enjoy watching those sort of things. Yeah, I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on this one. Where you guys landed on
You
it.
know, the just from a timing perspective, 1987 was 3 years before Clarence Thomas was elected to the Supreme Court, even after Anita Harris's all day long grilling. And at the time, this is before Bill Clinton was caught or lied to the FBI about his affair. So I think from a timing perspective, Gary Hart was the first politician that got called for his sexual escapades. Before that, they all did it. They even referenced that in the movie.
They do.
So, but he was the first one that got called on it. And why did he get called on it first? And you can see in the movie the way that it's written in the character of Gary Hart, the way he plays it, is he's shocked that they would question his private life or that he had an affair. All this that you don't hear about, and I was kind of disappointed it wasn't included in the movie, is that all this, Lee Atwater was behind all of it. He was the guy who made that happen. And he just the same guy who took out Dukakis too. He was on the campaign staff for George H.W. Bush. That's when campaigning actually changed in the United States of America. When they became dirty politics, and negative ads
and
all
media
that kind of
coverage.
stuff. Yeah. That's when it all changed, was with Lee Atwater and the George H.W. Bush campaign. And it started with Gary Hart was the first victim. And it was surprising to me they didn't bring that out in the movie.
Well, they mention a bit about like how do these photos get to it. I mean, it would have. Yeah, they didn't explicitly say anything, and they say that could it be like H.W. Bush's CIA ties, and like that, but it's.
And there was a lot that never came out about George H.W. Bush that I think is finally going to come out in a movie that's coming up about Agnew. But but anyway, just
they're making an Agnew movie. They're making that's cool.
You should, if you want, I'll send you a link to the podcast about it.
Well, I know,
really
good. I knew that there was. You said there was a good podcast and there was a good, but I didn't know they was making a movie about it.
Now, in this particular movie, just to talk about the movie itself, I thought Hugh Jackman, who always does a really good job of playing real life people, but this Gary Hart, I don't think he was as one note as Hugh Jackman played him. Is it just me, or did he not seem to be a rounded character to you?
Yeah, I think we've of course talked our love of Bad Education, and I was thinking we were going to get Bad Education Hugh Jackman in this, and I don't think it was. Yeah, it was seemingly a one note sort of performance, which is sad because we have seen him do amazingly explored character, and everything. I mean, you do get a little bit like the one scene that sticks out to me as where you sort of see on a personal level what people like in a Gary Hart was when that plane starts shaking and he tells that he walks that guy through. That was one of the more human things. In particular,
and that's when the movie I think was at its best, was in its quiet moments.
Yes.
Him with his daughter, and talking about her friend and going on a road trip and the airplane moment, and those are
the
best
road trip.
I don't think it was in the script, to be honest. I don't think the script gave him the opportunity.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I agree.
Because the moments he did were very well done, like the plane. So if there had been more scenes written into the script like that, he would have.
You're right. He should have just improv the whole scene.
Give him I think they spent too much time on the election before that, the 4 years before, when he kind of came into the national light. They spent too much time on that.
They could
have skipped that completely and gone with him. He ran the hearings for 3 Mile Island. I don't know if you remember that, Ava, or not, but that was big. That's what put him out there in the national.
Yeah, I remember
view.
3 Mile Island, but I didn't remember his
the hearings
his
on it where
involvement in it. Yeah.
they nailed that corporation for it. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah, no, I you bring up a good point of like this movie. You know, most movies, I don't ever hardly say this about movies, but this has an awful first act. And, you know,
Yes.
most of the time, like movies don't have a bad first, like it's a simple thing to set the stage. And so it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. But this movie, it sticks out of like, why on earth did they, I think that's a fine place to start the movie, but it's executed awfully. It's executed confusingly. It's like, and I'm like, I know this. Like, I know of like the situation in which this is at. Of course, you know, it's the Democratic National Convention. He comes in second place. They're talking about how, which I think is a really great conversation of saying, I think I'm the future of this party because you know whoever's the nominee this year is going to lose to Ronald Reagan. We're just electing essentially the loser of this who's going to lose this year. And since I'm second, I'm going to be the person who takes the mantle of the party going forward. This is a great place to be in. I'm whatever. Like that's excellent way to sort of set the stage, but it's written in the most confusing and weird and like, I mean, but yeah, I that first scene's awful. And the way that they, after that, they introduce you to all the characters, it's not interesting. It's not interesting in the slightest, where we learn about his wife and his child and his campaign officials. It's all just bland and uninteresting.
Was it because, and maybe not, it's, I not remember the timing of it. In that first part, was that where they asked Bob Woodward about him because he roomed with Bob Woodward? And if so, I'm just wondering if that first part was supposed to set that up. But even if it was, they didn't have to go on with it as long as they did, right? You know, kind of leading up to, just like we're saying, it's like that aspect of presidential candidates wasn't looked into. People turned their heads. And it wasn't just political people. They turned their heads. They turned their heads on athletes and, you know, all these people who were in power. They turned a blind eye to it because it didn't seem to be important to people for whatever reason. It was kind of expected.
And why is it important? Like that's a fascinating story because like the movie says it's not, but it's like, and it's unsaid, which I want to give it some credit of like letting you sort of fill in the reasons as to why, but I do kind of wish they would have had a thesis as to, which is it the media's fault that this is now becoming everybody's, you know, like, are they the ones that's setting the precedent for why people care? Because the media's sitting there like, I don't know, people care, and we're I don't know why that is now, and they take no responsibility. Yeah. And like in a smarter movie, that would be like part of, like they would kind of write it in a way that's like, of course that they're the ones setting the stage for this situation. But
I think their thesis was that it is the public's fault. The public cares, but for the wrong reasons. So in the big picture, here's my opinion of it, not the movies necessarily, but my opinion of it is they made a moral issue out of it, right? The Republicans made a moral issue out of it to play on, to play on religion and all that kind of stuff, and to use it as a political weapon, right? The people cared about it because it was gossip.
Yes.
Because they cared about it for all the reasons people buy tabloids. So they used the people's interest, I don't know what you want to call that kind of interest, that people's interest in gossip, they used it and twisted it, and they still are doing it. I mean, that's
that
real
life
with Clinton too.
Yeah. That's bringing the real life sort of, I mean, within the movie, I don't know if that's, so I mean, the one scene that brings to me that does do it is when they're talking about the what's going to be in the Miami Herald that day. And they're like, everyone says their things. They're like, okay, that's on the page one. And then they go to politics and they're like, Well, there's we followed Gary Hart, and he was talking about policy or whatever, and they're like, boring, put it in the back of it or whatever.
Right.
But of course,
Exactly.
And so that was the one, and so to me it does seemingly suggest more so than it doesn't blame the public because we don't really get to see the public's perspective or even the friends. I mean, we see it all from the reporter perspective. Is it a reporter versus the
well, they give the percentages, right? They give the percentages towards the end. That 64% don't care, and they don't. They don't care, but they care about learning the gossip and the juicy bits and what.
But that seems to suggest that it's a problem with the news, that the people don't care. It is the news that is. I mean, like I understand from a person, I do think that played into it actually historically, but within the story of the movie, it is sort of putting up here's the news, here's the politicians, and who's, and like it's sort of pinning it on the news, seemingly without digging anything but surface level, that it's their fault for this situation. I felt like, but at the same time, not ever blatantly saying it. But I that's me reading into it. I think that's the thesis it's trying to say, but I don't know.
Well, I think
it's complicated.
I think that's what you read into it because of his reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was so mad. It was his reaction that really turned it into the scandal that ended his campaign.
Yes.
As he came across as being entitled, and angry.
Yeah, exactly. That's all I kept thinking was entitled, white, and then a bad word. And that's what, And lying. It's like admit it,
Yeah.
Sorry, Diane, go ahead.
That's what made it a scandal.
Yes.
That's what made it news, was his reaction to it. It wouldn't have been as big a news if he hadn't reacted the way that he did.
Yeah.
And the reason he reacted the way that he did was because for all these 200 years, these guys have been getting away with this stuff and nobody ever called them on it.
Yeah.
At all. So, that's bottom line. But let me ask you a question. What did you think about the soundtrack? What did you think about it? Because that's what it was. Throughout the whole thing was this.
Oh, I didn't. Oh, you mean? The sound mixing in particular was awful in this movie. It was overbearing over what I think it was supposed to kind of be like interjet or whatever. Yeah, I mean there were scenes where it punctuated and it was too dynamic. At times it was too. It was the talking throughout it, and then whenever it boosts up and in the middle, like it's like. I had to adjust the sound at all times because it was mixed too, like the music was too high and the sound was too low. Even just in normal, like here's a scene of people talking followed by the scene of this music, and then like the music's blaring, but the people are still talking at the level at which they were talking at before, and so the music was just too loud. And I'm not someone who I like energetic things, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. It didn't add to.
I didn't notice any of it.
It didn't add any.
Well, I don't recall what the music was. To me it was the mix of it that was off. I don't recall any of the actual what the music even sounded like. It was I wasn't a huge fan of the way that the film was mixed.
Yeah.
But that was me. But this is now, Ava, the second time that the three of us are talking about Ben Bradlee, the character of Ben Bradlee in a movie. I mean, of course, a guy who's been in a character in tons of movies. He pops up in tons of movies. And I just love how he's a real life person, or was a real life person, and he is whatever the movie needs him to be. Like good person, bad person. It changes. Inspirational, right, and then other times he's a bad guy. I mean, not even just this one, but in movies in general.
Good press, get to the truth.
Yeah,
and then bad guy went along with all the bad stuff. Yeah,
yeah.
In this movie, I found that his version, or I don't know, his truth this time was the same as the one with Meryl Streep. We've got to get this out because we don't want to get beat. We've got to get that because we don't want someone to scoop. We've got the scoop. We need to make this happen because we don't want to get beat on this.
the difference.
We don't want to get scooped.
You're right. That's a big part of it. But there is also the part in this movie where, like, in the last one, he's like, where Tom Hanks is playing him, he's contemplative about his role in where he puts, where was the line in which he was friends with the president, and what is the? Are you okay?
No, Diane, when you were down there, Ollie's tail was going like this in the middle of the frame.
Was it? He was really winning out so bad. We just had to let him go.
I say, but like the difference here is like, in with the Tom Hanks when he was very, contemplate, like the whole it hinges on the fact of like, wait, did I have too close of a relationship with, it was not able to, look objectively, and was I not truthful enough in my reporting, and what does this mean for the future of politics? And then in this one, he's like, yeah, we didn't ever report on Lyndon Johnson's mistresses. And, and I don't know, it was just a different tone in which that was, Tom Hanks is very.
I agree.
Oh God!
But he still wanted to be first.
And he was so Tom Hanks was like, the way that they played it was like, this is a secret that's been like burrowing into me, and then this one he's just very open of like, we treated him different.
And in All the President's Men, Ben Bradley was like a hero.
Yeah.
Have they ever done is there a Ben Bradley movie I missed?
I don't know of a movie where he's the
main character. That
closest would be the Post, I guess, would be the closest. But it was just one thing. It was just the Pentagon Papers.
Yeah, it wasn't.
That was.
I do think that. Yeah, that'd be interesting. A mini series probably through like each is a different scandal or different.
How he changes. It we're gonna get this one out. That's for sure. Yeah. So I think that I think it's an interesting concept because this was the first politician that was called out for an extramarital affair, and it cost him the nomination, and he probably would have won the White House because he had what people were looking for at the time. I mean, this was coming off the Reagan years where it was like, we make as much money as you can, get as wealthy as you can, burn the environment down if you have to do it. We're going to give rich people tax cuts, and we're going to exchange drugs for guns, fill the inner cities with cocaine. I mean, we're going to do all these horrible things.
He would have been,
and he was an ideologue.
Jack Kennedy.
Yeah.
He would have been Jack Kennedy number 2. He would have been Jack Kennedy number 2.
He was the working family.
He was handsome. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But was he Hugh Jackman handsome? No, he wasn't.
No.
I looked it up. Actually, Hugh Jackman, because I have the thing with why do they keep hiring foreign
Australian
actors to play these American characters? It wasn't just like Emma Thompson, who I love, played Hillary Clinton in that Primary Colors movie.
I love Primary Colors.
The list goes on. And I'm not saying they do a bad job. I just like why, Gosling.
Ides of March.
Ryan Gosling played Neil Armstrong.
Oh, that one.
One of the most American characters you can ever have. And he even in an interview said, I hope they forgive me for being Canadian.
That's a preview to later in this season. You're going to be on that episode, right, David?
Oh, cool. Oh, sorry. I have already seen it. I'll watch it again. But I just always find that interesting why they do that. But when I looked up Gary Hart's picture, I thought Hugh Jackman does look like him. I thought there was a resemblance. I thought there was definitely a resemblance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Other way.
There we go.
There you go.
I mean, he's older and wrinklier and more normal. He's not Hollywood but close. I'm not saying it's like far, like it's not like miles away or anything like that. But I do find it just funny that they're like, he's the most handsome person I ever met. Like, look at that head of hair or whatever. And he did have hair, but a nice hair. But it was like, Hugh Jackman's that. But I mean, like, he looks more like a Robert Redford kind of, is the way I sort of see him as.
But he was much younger than he is now.
Yeah. And Cade, there's politicians.
He would have been one of the youngest presidents ever.
Ava's right.
Yeah.
She's supposed to say.
There's politician good looking, and then there's movie star good looking.
Yes.
So,
It would be odd if
for
they
a politician,
yeah. It would also ring odd if they hired someone who was Gary Hart looking and people were fawning over how attractive he was. It within a context of a movie, because we know when we hear people say attractive, in movies we hire very good looking people typically. So
and Donna Rice was the first woman that was thrown under the bus.
That's true.
She was the first one to literally be thrown under the bus. And I thought the way they depicted what that campaign did to her and how and her naivety, or however you say that word, was they did a really good job with that part, in my opinion.
Oh, see, our first disagreement, Diane, I don't know. I think to me it was overdone. I guess maybe it was for the purpose of the movie, with the mascara running down her eyes and her, and then I did look too on the internet to see where she was now, and she, now I can't remember.
She got married and had
the
kids.
Headline.
And she said
she does internet safety now.
Yeah,
internet safety. Oh, it was a line. It was pretty recent because it was related. It was related to this movie. It was. This movie brings back my PTSD from this event. It's like, she's still traumatized apparently about it. And what I found interesting was I couldn't remember, at the time I remembered sort of being on her side and Gary Hart's side, like, this is terrible what the press is doing, blah, blah, blah. Their personal lives are there. My opinion is the marital stuff is between the couple, right? They can agree to have an open marriage. That's between them. It's the lying, right? It's the lying and that bothers me more. So I remember at the time being more on their side, but I couldn't remember if they had ever proved that they had an affair. I couldn't remember and I had remembered it as they had, which I think is fascinating. Because they never did say they still claim today that they didn't. So I found that fascinating why I would think that they had, that it had been proven. I do remember, though, it was a pattern of behavior. Go ahead, Diane.
Yeah, it did. Lee Atwater did publish a series of pictures right around the time he ended his campaign, that had Donna sitting on Gary's lap. And that was the way that Lee Atwater proved that they had actually had the affair. But I think I like the way that they did that in the movie about, how the campaign literally kidnapped her and held her hostage so that the press couldn't get to her. And I don't know if it was with the woman that was depicted in the movie or not, but the fact that the woman thought of Donna Rice as one thing when she first met her, and another thing whenever she was to let her go to the press and throw her to the wolves, basically.
And she had a great arc, like you're right, like the staffer that worked for it. Like I really like. I thought that was a really good arc in a movie where no one has really arcs because it's a true life thing. But sometimes it's hard to make that thing.
There is no arc, but she did have an arc because she really realized that this wasn't some bimbo model girl who was just trying to score points.
I do think
somebody who
absolutely, and there is
caught up in the middle.
Yes, absolutely, and I do think that I am somewhat in between both of you on that. Of like, I think that staffer's thing's interesting and what she goes through, but there was the mascara. I mean, there was a few things of like, I don't know, but the middle part's not. Is actually more interesting than a lot of the like. It actually gets into a groove and it starts moving after a certain point. That I thought was it was good. I don't know. It's one. This is one that I mean. I think what's fighting me is like I love just political movies and I love that, but I ultimately I don't know. It's probably not it's by far not anywhere near the greatest political movies that there is. But it's still, I do like watching political campaigns and presidential campaigns and stuff like that in film.
My favorite, can I say my favorite performance was, and I shouldn't forget his name, the
J.K. Simmons.
Thank you. Exactly. J.K. Simmons, yeah. See, he was my favorite performance in this.
I was going to say that I thought he was a little bit wasted in this because I don't understand that character. I like, or how it's written. I don't understand what we're trying to get from that character. Are we? I don't know what his perspective is. I feel like it changes, but not like a character arc, but just like it. I don't know what I'm supposed to get from it. I'm confused by it.
He was the guy saying. He was the guy saying what a waste this is because this guy can explain politics. This guy is smart. He's got everything. He's got the heart. Pardon the pun. He's got the caring for the country and for politics and for the environment, etc. But all anybody wants to do is talk about his looks and take pictures of him. So I think he was the character who was defending Gary Hart in the movie.
Yeah.
He was also very rough edges. Like it was odd. Like it was like it didn't seem clear.
He's a pragmatic campaign manager. He was pragmatic.
Okay.
Yeah, he was the campaign manager, and so his goal was to present Gary Hart in the best light that he could. But he also had a candidate that didn't listen to him. I mean, he might have been able to salvage the thing if Gary Hart would have listened to him.
But he also he knew him for a long time, right? He I guess it was he ran the campaign probably the last time. I think he was there and everything. He was there at least, but I don't know if he was campaign manager. But and he said that he knew him for a long time. But it seems odd to me that he was so in the inner circle, but seemingly didn't know this was happening or didn't that was also there was little things like that then he left the campaign, but that was never like a huge deal. It was, I guess that, I don't know. I didn't feel like that was clear that he left it.
Yeah, as far as what happened.
Yeah. And so there was just little pieces like that I'm like, and when I'm questioning that, and then I'm like, I don't know where these shifts in this character happen off camera seemingly. And it was just hard to sort of grab onto that character who's, I think, supposed to be your point of view character in this movie. But he doesn't start off that way. He starts off as being the oh no, we're not having him out going to the South, and no, we're not having him he's a very hard-edged character that is sort of against the audience in a lot of ways. And then for him to turn and to be the audience surrogate, it was odd and confusing, and for it to never happen. For you to see that happen off camera oftentimes was, I don't know, I found it to be a very peculiar character that I didn't understand. That was just me.
Yeah, they kind of downplayed a lot of his role once the scandal came out, I thought. Because what he did was, before they closed the accounts, he made sure everybody got paid. I mean, he was the on the ground, cared about the campaign staff, the people who had put their lives on hold in order to run the campaign. And I almost wish the movie would have been about him instead of Gary Hart. Because I think he's the political character or operative, whatever you want to call it, that is the most interesting person in this movie, and he was not. They didn't utilize him well. Isn't that what you said? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
And Caitlin Devers shows up in another movie.
We were just talking about her recently because she was supposed to play, but she was between her and who ended up playing her, Bella Ramsey, for Last of Us. It was between the two of them to play Ellie. So, and I like her in a lot of things. I like her in Booksmart. And those are two great actresses to be down to the last minute. I do think that they made the right choice. But I want to see her, Caitlin Dever, in more things because I think she's excellent.
She was amazing and unbelievable. She really
oh
was
my
good.
God, was she? Yeah.
She just, so believable.
And so heartbreaking. I mean, that's one of the most heartbreaking That's one of the most moving performances I've seen, and it just your heart breaks for her over and over and over and over again. It's just
Isn't that the truth? Did she get any nominations for that role? Because she should have.
She should have. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
It would have been an Emmy or Golden Globe, but yeah, I don't know.
I'm sorry, which role are you talking about?
Unbelievable. Caitlin. She played the daughter in this movie.
Yeah.
And then she was in Unbelievable, which was a Hulu show. It was her and Toni Collette, and I forget who the other lady was, but yeah, it's a wow. It was I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult show.
Yeah, there's no way easy to explain that. It's got a 98 on the Rotten Tomatoes, but I was trying to see. Oh yeah, it got all kinds of nominations on it. Golden Globe Award for Best Performance by an Actress in a Miniseries.
She got it, or did Toni Collette?
I don't know. It doesn't say. She certainly deserved it, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But Toni Collette might have. I don't know. That's it might have been that other Merritt Weaver that got the award.
Mm.
I'm going to definitely have to look because she was so good in that.
And I'll tell you the other thing that she was good in, Dope Sick. She was so good in Dope Sick. That was, yeah. So
I think you saw, or you said that she was in Last Man Standing or a TV series.
Yeah, I think so. Yes. I am trying to make sure I understand which character you're talking about. What's her name? Tell me her real name again.
Caitlin Dever is her name. And
yes, and she played, I was telling Diane that the two actresses who played Tim Allen's daughters in his sitcom for years were both in this movie. She's one of them. And the other one is the one who was babysitting Donna Rice.
Okay.
And he's very well known to be a very staunch Republican.
Yeah.
He put it in his movie. So I'm starting to think, okay, was there something behind this movie? some who made this movie?
Yeah.
Yes, no, I agree. She's a very good actress. She was good on the sitcom. It was, a very lightweight part, but it was a very regular part. She was in almost every episode, and I always enjoyed her. So I'll have to check her out. That's why I was asking what show you were talking about.
Yeah, and she was previously in Cinema Verite, the Loud Family show we watched. She was one of the daughters in that.
Yeah.
But yes, she was in
books. I just saw her in a comedy about, I think it's called Rosalind. Oh. So if you enjoy her, she's the it's the Romeo and Juliet story from she plays Romeo's girlfriend before Juliet, and Juliet's her cousin, and it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun, but she was the lead in that.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean,
a very lightweight character compared to what you guys are talking about.
Another lightweight, one of my favorite movies was Booksmart, where she's one of the stars, and she's great in that. Directed by the great director of what was that movie called? It's directed by Olivia Wilde. What was the movie that she did that was so controversial?
Oh, what was that movie?
We talked about last.
It had Harry Styles.
It was all that problem.
Don't worry, darling.
Don't worry, darling. Yeah, the great director of the Don't Worry, Darling. Yeah. Which I love how Chris Pine has finally, has commented on Spitgate now.
Yeah.
Oh, he has. I didn't know that.
Yes.
What did he say?
He said it sure looks like I spit that Harry spit on me, but that did not happen. And they were saying so he was like, that did not happen. And when we were on the plane ride back, that's when we learned from the publicist that people were talking online. And then I'm like, well, then why didn't you immediately put out some sort of statement?
Because he doesn't, Chris Pine hasn't had a cell phone all these years. He has no social media presence on purpose.
But he was saying that
because of this kind of stuff.
his publicist told him, or that the publicist of that, and like they were asked for comment immediately, and then they just did not respond. I guess maybe they thought it was going to blow over or something. But
I'm betting they had no idea what they were talking about. Like that's what, but that's would be my take is like he spit on me. Well, where, who? Because when he finally did comment, he commented very specifically that they were talking about this running joke that they had, making the movie and afterwards, and it was an exchange between them about that. And he was much more detailed than I am. I don't remember the details, but I'm guessing they just didn't know what the heck anybody was talking about, at first. But I don't know. Yeah. Well, I mean, people talked about the movie, right? Before he came out and said, if he had come out and said it right away, nobody, the movie would have gotten a lot less press, right?
That's true. So
it was Toni Collette that had won the. It was.
She was great in it too. I mean, but it was a flashier kind of like. I mean, she got to play. She was great in it. Oh my God, I mean, she's always great, but she was great in that.
Before we move off of Toni Collette, you guys have to watch her in the United States of Terror.
You bring this up all the time. Yes,
I do. I brought it up until you guys watch it. I'm going to bring it up.
Fun
when
fact
her name
about
comes up.
This movie, I learned this was the first film ever to be released on Election Day in the United States.
Oh, really?
Fun fact about this movie, about the front runner.
So, 2018 midterm. So
yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Just fun fact about that.
Again, interesting.
I ask.
It's interesting trivia.
Yeah. Right? So again, I ask who made the movie for what purpose.
Well, I could see where it would get a lot of attention after the 2016 election. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah,
just to remind everybody that we used to care about stuff like this.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean,
surprising they didn't. Yeah, it's surprising they didn't have one come out at the same time about Edwards.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's this very, very similar sort of story.
Because
history repeats itself.
2018, wasn't that when Monica Lewinsky had her story come out? And that series American Story or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do find this fascinating. The other, like, it's written by Jason Reitman and then somebody else, and then someone who was a staffer or someone who he worked for Bill Clinton and the Clinton he was essentially, the people say, was the inspiration for Ryan Gosling in The Ides of March, and so like he's I don't know if you ever saw that one. That's another political film, but he's heavily involved in politics and everything, and he's one of the writers in this. So I think that's where a lot of that other stuff comes from.
Yeah, and that might be why they have so much of the political junkie stuff, the stuff that really didn't add anything to it.
He was Hillary Clinton's press secretary in her 2008 presidential campaign.
Oh, okay.
So that's what he was.
I don't know.
Just fun fact about him. He helped write this. Yeah, I agree.
What was his name again?
Jay Carson.
Okay.
He's worked for domestic and international politics for Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Howard Dean, Bill Bradley, Chuck Schumer, Mike Bloomberg. So very, very entrenched in politics and yeah.
Democratic politics.
Democratic politics. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess we can just jump. Do you guys have anything else that you had any other notes?
Well, I think it's a strong performance by Hugh Jackman, but not a great character, I think we only saw this two-dimensional kind of character. And, but I think Hugh Jackman did a great job with it. I didn't have any real problems with the casting. It just maybe instead of having so many people in the movie, maybe they should have pared it down a little bit, maybe, and given the main characters more to do.
Yes, I would agree with that.
I don't think they presented Gary Hart in the way that they needed to real for the viewer of this movie to get how really popular he was.
Mm-hmm. They just kind
You
of tell
know?
you he's the front runner. They kind of say it and not show it.
Yeah. And if you're you know, at the time, he was the I don't know how do I say this and not sound really political. I don't know. The Great Hope.
Oh.
He was the Obama of the time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but from coming out of that, I mean, like, it shouldn't have been too hard, you would think. I mean, like that's what they're so much celebrating in the beginning of the movie is that like there's not someone to carry the Ronald Reagan banner out of the Reagan years. Like that there's not someone who's that charismatic and that well loved by the American public that the Democrats had a chance to sort of get out from underneath that because H.W. Bush was not nearly as charismatic.
Was not that good, but H.W. had Lee Atwater.
yeah. Well, like that. I mean, like that's sort of. I mean, and so I mean, of course, later you have Bill Clinton and like that. People didn't want to vote. I don't think wanted to vote for H.W. Bush, but like I don't know. So I mean, like he didn't have the charisma that a Reagan had, and so they had a window there. But then of course the rug was pulled out from underneath him. And to be fair, I mean, yeah, he stepped in it quite a bit. I mean, like that whole. I mean, I didn't know the specifics of that, but I very much knew that press conference in front of that painting and all that, very famous, and all that, and that, the pause. And I don't think that's a fair question ruined it. That was the end of, and I did like that how they dramatized that part. Like it was that was really interesting. Yeah. So a very famous moment in American politics there. Cause you think he's almost past it. You think because of that, he nails that exchange at that, at that whatever that present. I don't even know what that was, but yeah, where he confronts the editor of the Miami Herald and all that, and that was.
So they were on a panel together.
Yes, they were on a panel together. Yes, and so you think, oh well, well of course history. He's not, but within the context, you're like, oh, he's past it and everything, but then he totally fumbles that afterwards, spectacularly.
Yeah.
And it's because he wasn't truthful.
Huh?
It's because he wasn't truthful. It's because he wasn't.
Right.
If he would have just been and that's what sort of like the campaign, just sort of say it and get past it, like people. But it's the fact that he's
people don't care.
yeah. Just say yes. Yeah.
And it just it wasn't like an actor's movie. I think I really like this movie.
Oh, okay.
FYI. I
did
like the movie because of his historical perspective and what it was showing. And it was such a dramatic shift. And even after that, like him not coming clean changed the way that publicists handle their people now. You come clean. To go full circle to Hugh Grant. You remember years ago when he got caught in a limo with a prostitute. But
it wasn't the press that outed him. It was the police.
Yeah. No, but what I'm saying is he went on whatever talk show host, I can't even remember who it was, and totally admitted it, came totally clean, was totally accountable, said, and my poor girlfriend, and he handled it in such a way that became the model for how you should handle those things. And I think that was that whole Gary Hart thing kind of legacy. So what I liked about the movie, it wasn't really an actor's movie. So I think that's why Hugh Grant wasn't even, why these great actors weren't sort of used properly. It was more about the chaos and the suddenness of, oh my God, it was like overnight, right? That it changed. Here's how you cover politicians to how we used to cover politicians, bam. And then everybody at every level had to deal with it. And it was such just like a sudden thing. And that's what I thought the movie did a good job of portraying, was just the total chaos of it that got triggered and then changed history. from that point on. So I think that's why I like the movie. But I agree that the actors then didn't get to, dig into their characters because there were too many of them and there was too much chaos and there was too much, and the writing could have been a little better, I think, because I agree it was like, why, why didn't they show this or why didn't they show that? And the only thing I can come up with is because it was chaos. Like, people didn't know, what to do, what to say, and how to handle the situation.
Yeah. But I think it's interesting when you look back on history, the way they treated Gary Hart and his dalliances, I guess. When the media uncovered it, with a little help from another campaign, that it played so differently than when Anita Hill, was put under oath in front of the Senate judicial hearing, I guess, and told her truth about Clarence Thomas, but the media made her the villain and him the victim. Same thing they did with Kavanaugh. So I think the media chooses who the winners are, who the losers are.
And I thought this movie dealt with misogyny a little bit, as it should, right? The one character, one of Tim Allen's daughters in the sitcom, and I forget her name, I apologize, but the brunette, the one who wound up taking care of and having sympathy for Donna Rice.
The only person with an arc.
Yeah. But she was in the early scenes, and the guy sends a woman for coffee, and she turns to him and says, "That's not the person. That's not the person who gets coffee, by the way." So I thought they had drips of that in here, right? That attitude we talk about, the double standard, basically, is what it is. And it's prevalent, and it's been for eons, and it's sad. It's changing, which is good. Change is tough sometimes. Diane's like, no, it's not changing.
Like you said, it's much better to not elect a woman with a bad reputation. Known freaking rapist. Yeah.
Narcissistic rapist. Yeah.
There's a lot of interest. I mean, it tapped on interesting things, but it had to move. One of the things that people point to, and this is a technical thing, so I probably should wrap up and give our recommendations. But one of the one of the things that people point to is that scene where he's exiting the car, and that's what the poster's from, is where it's all this one shot where the cameras are flashing and they're going through there, and he's trying to exit into that. It's a great little technical shot, and you have to say it because people point to it. That's what the one thing most people talk about with this movie is that shot. So there's that. There, we talked about it. It was good.
Well, and the one where the kid with the curly hair that had to run to get through the reporters to the front gate of the family. That was another kind of a really good shot.
Yes, where they're like.
I mean, I don't know anything about it, but it looked like to me it was just one. If the camera's behind him and he's trying to get through this crowd.
And he's just a guy who works for them, and they're asking him all. Yeah. He's just a guy. He's a young guy. And then
I'm just here to order pizza.
Yeah, he's there, and then he just plays a card or does cards with I think he's just there to distract them. I don't know.
Yeah. They had to send the campaign handlers to everybody, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and I love how. Also sort of what's changed is how they're they vary, and that's probably his, the Clinton staffer who brought that up and everything is they're we don't have a Secret Service for them, and they're because he's not the nominee yet, and some of that's of course changed now. A lot of that they'll give them out to people who are who are running for the nomination too now, but still, I mean that's a whole other thing that you don't think about. I mean that's how much has changed too, because it probably wouldn't have been all that necessary before. Now it's who knows? But yeah, that's the thing that's changed.
And the 24-hour news cycles.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah. So, I mean, things, I don't know. Anyways, okay. Would you, well, I guess we'll go with Ava since we started with Diane last time. Would you recommend this movie and what would you rate it?
I would recommend it. Especially again, kind of like the Loud movie. Like if you didn't live it, I think it's a very interesting study and prompts thought, and basically it prompts thought about what should we care about, and that's certainly been a huge issue now for decades. Particularly what should the media care about, what should the public care about, particularly with politicians, and what happens when you don't care about certain things. So rating, I would probably give it 3. I was contemplating it. Is there a door? 3 doors, because I'm fascinated by the part that the back door played or didn't play.
Yes, that
in
was
the movie.
Yes, there is a door emoji in luck. How many? You said 3 doors?
Yeah, 3 doors.
3 doors. The cool. And Diane, would you recommend this movie and what would you rate it?
This is so tough. If you're interested in the history of politics, I guess, or presidential politics, it might be worth watching this movie if it was free.
Yeah, that's the big one.
I had to pay for it. I will tell you, there's a documentary on MSNBC that came out, and I was trying to find the date, but it looks like it was in 2018, probably maybe earlier in the year. And It's called "This Happened: Sex, Lies, and the Candidate," and that might be better to watch.
Is it specifically about, or is it about just the sex lives of candidates, or is it about?
No, it takes a look back at Gary Hart's bid for the presidency and how Miami Herald reporters Tom Felder and Jim Mickey broke the story effectively, ending his career campaign.
Interesting.
So, but yeah, or read a book. I don't know, but the soundtrack on this movie took me out of it so many times. It was
jarring. It was jarring.
It was jarring. The clapping, the pounding.
I don't remember the clapping, but yeah, I don't remember the time music. But yeah, you're right. It was jarring. Is all I remember about it.
I mean, they were trying to up the
had different sound equipment or something, or worse ears.
I was watching it on different sound than I typically would, and I don't know in comparison to anything. So I was listening to it on a very nice sound equipment, and so it probably also changed it. There was a lot of rattle. I'm like, oh my god. Okay.
Only watch it if you have really good sound equipment.
Yeah, I had it on my surround sound, and I had to turn it off.
That's what I had it on my. So I was at my parents' house watching it, and it was surround sound, and I'm like, oh my god, it was like.
It was a pounding.
Maybe you have to watch it then with bad sound equipment, because I didn't have surround sound.
I don't know. I could kind of see them trying to up the ante and create some anxiety. And
I think that was the point, was to sort of like be like, like this is because there's montages that break this up, and it's like, and it's just throbbing and then they're mixed still at this level of all the other talking, and then there's like this loud sound that's over the talking. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
So not to go off track, but related, if you do watch, The Triangle of Sadness. Again, I watched it because it was a dark comedy, and it was nominated, I think, it was nominated for something. I don't know if it was nominated for Best Picture this year, but
yes,
they purposely put in the series of obnoxious noises in just about every scene. And I usually hate that, but it was so well placed. They were so well placed and fed into the storyline. I think it was humorous. It was part of the humor. So I can definitely see where sound matters.
It really,
but
it does.
I didn't have surround sound. I didn't notice anything with the audio, but it could have been me, or maybe it's because I had bad sound, not great sound equipment. I just had the TV speakers.
Yeah. Diane, what were you going to rate this? Sorry.
A yacht. I would have rated a yacht.
A yacht. Oh, you're going to make it monkey business. Or was that what it's called? Monkey business?
Monkey business,
Yeah.
That's right.
That's a good one. I like that.
The picture that Lee Atwood released had Gary Hart in a T-shirt that said monkey business on it, too.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well,
one of those tragic wardrobe choices.
Yeah. Or some good Photoshop. Who knows?
True.
Yeah. I would ultimately, if it is on a streaming service, that would change a little bit. I mean, because we had to pay for it, and then if you had to pay for it, I would not recommend paying for this. Yeah. But if it does appear on a thing, I mean, I guess if you're very interested, it seems like that would be right at my alley. It's long. I wouldn't say it feels too long. There is some pacing things like in the first act, but because I just think that first act is awful. But once it gets in its groove, it does find a good pacing. I struggle to understand sort of the point of what they're trying to say. It seems a little bit muddled at times, and there's the characters I can't really grab a hold of. But I don't know if the story was told good, some of the it would be fine. There's not character things in All the President's Men, but it's still about something, and it's streamlined, and it's a good thriller, and it's paced well, and so I don't know. At the end of the day, I wasn't a huge fan of this, and I guess I wouldn't recommend it, despite the fact that if it was free and if it was on, I guess you could watch it and everything. But I do think if the point was to tell this story, I have seen the Gary Hart story in like a documentary and different thing, and I think it could be better. I think a documentary would suit it. If you're saying that documentary that you talked about was good, then yeah. I mean, I think it's a good story to know. And if you want to hear, so I mean, at the end of the day, if it shares the story, I guess it's all net good. So I don't know. Watch it, don't watch it. I don't care, but I wouldn't recommend it, and definitely don't
watch it or don't watch it. I don't care. Not that. That's kind of how I feel about both these movies. Here's the thing: one of my all-time favorite political movies is Dave.
Oh,
you know who directed Dave?
Who?
Jason.
Reitman.
Oh. So. That's it. So my level of disappointment is so high right now.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Jason Reitman
as a comedy, wasn't it?
Reitman.
Wasn't Dave a comedy? Yeah.
Yes, it was, and it was a very good movie.
Yes.
So to watch two movies by the same director.
So Dave was directed by his father, Ivan Reitman.
Oh. That's what it is.
Yes. I was like, that doesn't, time-wise doesn't make too much sense. Yeah. Yes.
That explains everything then.
Mm-hmm.
And I did like Up in the Air.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kind of the same kind of, there's a lot of bitterness in the movie, but then you have this heartwarming piece where this person who's like not somebody you really like kind of becomes somebody you really like at the end. The George Clooney, you kind of go, oh, you know what? He does have a heart. He is kind of a sweet guy. Yeah, you didn't?
I didn't see it now.
Okay, watch it and then decide whether you would recommend either of these movies.
Yeah. I heard a lot of good things. Yeah, I mean, both him and Anna Kendrick were nominated, I think.
Yes.
But yeah, I never gave my thing. Give it newspaper. It's a newspaper, is what I give it. It's like I said. It's watch it, don't watch it. I don't care. I'm not gonna convince you either way. It's I'm not upset. Even if someone said I really like this movie, I wouldn't be like appalled by it. It would just be okay. But definitely, I would say don't like we did pay money to see it. But if it is, I feel like I've seen it on HBO Max before and stuff, so it does pop up on things, and so if it's free, and if you want to.
And can I say, I find it very interesting because I have said what Diane has said before, like I've seen better documentaries about the story. This one I hadn't. So I wonder if I had seen a documentary first, if I would have liked it as well as I did. Sometimes
documentaries are the best way to tell stories. I mean, like, you know, as someone who made documentaries and stuff like that, it's sometimes is like, I think of the one example that bothers me so much is the Halston documentary versus its miniseries. That documentary was so great, and I'm like, this would make, and I do think just adapting, like, it had a story arc for Halston in a documentary, a character arc in a documentary form, which he's not even interviewed, you know, and everything. And then the miniseries doesn't even give him one, and I'm like, it's a miniseries. And it
should be an arc.
And this is a perfect character to
That's
tell
the
that
whole
from.
point.
And so, but I don't know. Yes. Okay. Well, yeah, I'd like to check out a documentary on it. I think it's would be really interesting.
It's an interesting story.
Mm-hmm. And everyone's still around. So.
Well, yeah, Gary Hart's still alive. His wife passed away last year.
Yeah.
But they stayed married.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So
they did. So did Clinton and Hillary.
Yeah. You know, in an interview
Diane,
with her one time, she said that was the hardest thing she ever had to do in her life, was to stay married to him.
Oh, Hillary? Sorry, I missed what you said. I was talking over you. Hillary. Yeah, I bet. I liked what she said about, she said they were walking to Air Force One, and not even the dog liked him.
Yeah.
And Chelsea, that was her joke about it was, not even the dog.
Yeah, when they were walking to the helicopter, she made Chelsea walk between her and Bill. Yeah. Chelsea talked about, I really appreciated that too, Mom. Yeah.
Wow. Well,
Diane, real quick though, you were saying about the reporter. I thought that was interesting.
Oh, yeah.
The reporter that was portrayed in this movie.
Was he in
Bill
that,
Feldman.
or was he interviewed in that? Do you know?
Yes. He was interviewed several times when this movie came out. And he was very upset with the way he was portrayed. He wanted an apology.
Interesting.
He felt like that he was portrayed as like a, inquirer kind of, reporter. And that wasn't the case in his mind, that he didn't do anything that was voyeurism or whatever. He was just doing, what good reporters do. And
well, Gary Hart literally says, follow me if you think that, like, about that. Which
he did say that, and they took him to task on that one. But in his career, he was worried of the effect on his legacy, as a reporter. He did become an editor at Miami Herald, but he got fired. So
interesting.
Now he's a professor, I guess, at Boston University, but he's part of the documentary, because it's actually, the documentary's about the Miami Herald, getting the scoop on the Gary Hart story.
And we didn't mention, Bill Burr is the other reporter in this, stand-up comedian Bill Burr. So, and I love seeing him in things. I think he's fascinating.
Every time the camera was on him, it was like everything else disappeared.
Yeah.
He's just one of those kind of people that...
He's got this energy, and there's a range. He has a range, and like and he's playing essentially himself in these things, like, his style. But he's so fascinating to watch, and I thought he was excellent in this. I mean, it's not like it was a deep character or anything, but it was fun to watch him in it. Okay.
The camera just found him automatically every time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another actor that was like that with the camera that would find him every time, that passed away on Friday. Lance Reddick.
Oh, yeah.
He was in the John Wick series. Mm-hmm. He's a character actor. He was in
Fringe.
The Wire. He was in Fringe, which that's
what I know him from. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. And he did. He passed away suddenly on Friday, and it's kind of sad because I always looked for him in things for some reason. He's
Mm-hmm.
just one of those faces that when the camera found him, you just couldn't take your eyes off of him. He did Bones, the TV series Bones. He was
Oh,
in it.
mm-hmm.
So anyway,
Yeah.
kind of sad moment. Don't want to end on it though. I want to talk about Summer Moon coffee.
Oh, that's good. Well, we got it. We have to tell what our new movies, our next week's movies are.
Oh yeah, that's right. Next week's movies.
We still have part of it. I guess we're trying to go for the record here, but for longest episode. But anyways, let's head into preview time now.
No.
And now, preview time. When it comes to entertainment, you can't beat a good film. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
Can't beat a good film.
You can't beat a good film. Yes, that's right. Well, next week we have two films, as always on the show. Kind of in the name. Hopefully, Diane, are you looking up where these are at on streaming?
Shoot! I do this every time. I think I'm going to look those up ahead of time, and I never do it.
So our next films it's a double feature centered around a actress this time who's in both films, and it is next week is Nicole Kidman night. We have two films featuring Nicole Kidman, back in the news again for probably being the reason Tom Cruise didn't go to the Academy Awards.
Really?
That's the
Oh
rumor.
my gosh, you got to tell us this story while I'm looking these up.
People said that was probably. I guess they haven't ever appeared publicly since then. I'm like, he's never been to the Academy Awards. I guess I had to think about that, but that's what people say. People said, they speculated. If people speculate, it's because he wasn't nominated for an acting award either. But that was, I don't know, all this because he's supposed to appear. Fun fact: Tom Cruise was supposed to appear up to the last minute, and then he didn't show up, and people were like, "What?" And then Jimmy Kimmel made a Scientology joke and everything, and then I guess Jimmy Kimmel's married to the producer of the Oscars. I don't know if it's every year or just whenever he does it, but she had to come out and be like, we would have not made that joke if Tom Cruise was in the audience. Anyways, a lot of stuff about Tom Cruise not showing up to the Academy Awards.
Okay.
Hopefully that bought you some time. The first film that
It did, thank you.
The first film we brought you.
idea.
So the length of the disclaimer, the length of this one's not my fault. This is
So our first one we're watching is the Sofia Coppola remake of The Beguiled. So The Beguiled, we're watching The Beguiled. And then our second movie that we're watching is one that people really, really liked and her performance in, and she stars in that one, and that's Destroyer. So we're watching The Beguiled and Destroyer. Diane, where can people watch The Beguiled?
Netflix.
It's on Netflix. Yeah. Oh, that's fun.
Netflix. Yay.
Love that. And The Beguiled, The Beguiled, I just said Destroyer. Where can people watch Destroyer?
They can watch The Destroyer for free on their Amazon Prime account.
Oh, okay.
Yes. If you don't have an Amazon Prime account, you could try Freevee. It's free on it. Freevee. I've never heard of that one. Have I?
I think that's through Amazon. Like, I think that's one.
Freeform?
Oh, it is. No, it's not
Freevee.
Freeform.
It's like V, yeah.
VEE.
VEE, yeah.
VEE, yeah. And then, of course, you can rent them all on Redbox.
Yes, you
I love
can do
the fact
that.
that Alan's got a Redbox account.
Yeah.
Every time I see Redbox, I think of Walgreens.
I know. I
There's
think
a
of
Redbox. Yeah.
I don't think of it as having anything like that.
Yeah.
Yes, and it will have ads on the one that's on Freebie, but that's fine, I guess. Well, so that's what we're watching next week. Excited for that. Our guest will be another filmmaker, so we'll have fun time there. Diane loves hanging out with young filmmakers. That's her pastime.
It gives you someone to talk to, Cade. I always feel so sorry for you because when it's like me and Ava, I mean, we're not filmmakers. We don't know.
That's fun.
Ava, did you know that film was filmed on digital? I had no idea.
It was one of the early RE cameras, and so it was. But yeah.
See, I had no idea. But I'm learning a lot from Cade, just things that he talks about. I have an appreciation for, long scenes, they're shot all together. Yeah, I'm starting to learn some of that. Mm-hmm. And then by Tuesday, I've forgotten it. So terrible.
I try not to talk too much about. I mean, like I do find the technical stuff interesting, but it's not. I mean, it's not. It's just a fact. Some people really. There's gearheads or whatever. People who's into cinematography. It's part of it, but it's not. I love good character thing more than anything, and so.
It has to be really obvious to Diane's point. Like we were talking about, I finally saw Everything All at Once. What is it? Everything. You want to get it. And I asked her if the film editor won because of just all those splices or whatever they're called. Yes. I don't know the technical language, but the effects are one thing, but the rapidness of those cuts and yeah.
Well, I don't even know. Did they win?
Yeah, that's
yes.
Okay.
Yes, he won.
Well, good for him.
Yeah. He was one of the many Oscars that won that night.
Oh, I love that, and I just love that film won. I mean, of course, now you have the sort of like everything with film discourse. Then people are like, nah, was it really that great? And before it was the same people who were like, this is the greatest thing ever, and now it's like,
better win, yeah.
Yeah, and now it's like, now that it didn't, it's like, was it? Like I like this other film more, and I'm like, okay, that film was, I mean, one of the, I think it'll go down as a classic because it's just so many things, and it's beautiful. It's at the end of the day, it's all that, and it's just a beautiful story.
I will never forget that you and Andrew come into trivia talking about that movie. I mean, this doesn't happen. Cade goes to movies all the time. We didn't always talk about them, but they both walked in talking about this movie and how it was the best movie they had seen in the previous 12 months, and just groundbreaking, and
especially
I'm glad I saw it. Yeah.
And that was kind of, and I'm glad that it showed they really started it, like when it first came out, it wasn't huge. It was kind of a small, I mean, like how A24 movies typically do. There's the art house people that go and see them or whatever, so it's a moderate thing. But then like the people who went and saw it, like, it's like, you got to see this, and you got to see it in theaters, is the best place to see it. I think it's a movie that still works on TV and everything, but I saw
it on TV. Yeah. You can definitely see it on.
So yeah, that's what I think it totally works, but but I was so disappointed that because it was released, pretty much like Oscars of last year around that time. It was released in March, and I'm like, that is for it to have the longevity to win a year later is going to be very, very difficult. But I hope that it does.
It did it, yeah.
And it didn't. Well, that's our show. Go check out Summer Moon in Tulsa, and like us on our Instagram and Twitter. Follow us there at Double Feature MC. Interact with us that way. We post these 60-second. I don't even we've really talked about that on the show, but we have these really cool 60-second. I mean, I might have plugged it every time. Who knows? We have these 60-second reviews of each of these movies that we talk about, and then we put them on Instagram and on my TikTok at the K Thomas, but and on the YouTube channel as well. So we put them out a few different places, but check those out too. They're fun. They end up going around the world. Go around the world. So follow us everywhere. It's that's a fun thing we do, and we try to put different things, We do some, we give our opinions on our Twitter about what are some new things that are movie trailers we'll share sometimes, and just our thoughts on different stuff. It's a fun place to be. Ava, thank you for being on here. I appreciate it. Hope you had a fun time.
Thank you for having me. I always do. Thank you for having me. in my uninformed filmmaking self.
Yeah. Ava and I we just know if we like something or not. We don't.
Yeah, yeah. Entertainment value. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's it. And I do think we just, as of like 10 seconds ago, passed our mark.
No.
Ava set another world record. Like it, subscribe, watch us on all channels, even Twitch.
Cade, you did that on purpose.
Ava comes in here and just does this every time, and I don't know why she does that, but she does. Well, great. That's our to our longest episode ever. We'll see you next week when we talk The Beguiled and Destroyer. See you next time. Bye. Everyone, bye.
Bye.